Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Market Open. We are live. Thank you all for being here. It is Monday, March 30th. We are ending out the month of March. We've got 2 days left, today and tomorrow, Tuesday. And then we are done with March, and we are officially heading into April. It's kind of crazy. We're almost done with March. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. Tons of things have happened in the past 24 hours in terms of the equity markets. We are green in the pre-markets, which is nice. There have been so many things that have happened in regards to not only the AI narrative, but obviously what's going on with the war. And Trump is tweeting this morning. The Iranian parliament is tweeting yesterday night. It was ugly in the futures. Then we V-shaped and we flipped. S&P 500 right here is officially green. We're up almost 1%, 0.86, 639.57. It'd be very nice to break 640. So it's nice to see a little bit of green to start off Monday morning, but the reason for the green might not necessarily be something we can trust. Maybe it is. We'll talk about it, just like the reason for the deep red on Friday might have been a little bit too oversold. Meta is up 1.4%. Apple's up 0.22. Bitcoin went from 65 to 67. Bitcoin was looking like it was in a tough spot over the past couple of days, and you're seeing a nice little rebound of about $3,000 since last night, around $2,500. Nvidia's up 1%, Micron's up, Tesla's up, Elf, SoFi, Unity. Got a lot of names that are actually making some decent momentum. I mean, pretty much everything is up in the pre-market. The question is going to be, can it hold? The question is, can you trust it? Can you buy into the strength? And we will talk about all the different ideas around kind of what's happening with these equity prices as we get into the market open, and we keep going from there. This is the last day in California. It's the last day of traveling for a long time. It was I would say, successful and fun Los Angeles meetup. So if you were there, thank you for showing up. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. It was fun. It was really cool. I will have a lot of pictures and other stuff to post from it. Some of you guys might have seen a couple of things on Twitter. Probably in like 3 days, I'll get all the photos back by Braden. Shout out to Braden in the community, who was the photographer at the event. If you guys followed me on Instagram, you guys probably saw the Instagram story. There was a big announcement by Mr. Steve, which I think people enjoy hearing his announcement, and he will make an official announcement on his channel pretty soon, so that'll be very fun as well. But yeah, it was really fun. It was exciting. Again, I'll talk more about this tomorrow when I get back. There will not be a market close today because I will be on a flight in a couple hours, but starting tomorrow, March 31st, we will be back on a regular schedule. Look, overall, every time we do these meetups, it's really humbling because there's just so many people that come from different areas to be part of this community. And I will say the one thing that was important in this meetup, or that was different in this meetup versus the New York meetup, is in the New York meetup, which was on, I think, February 1st, a lot of people were asking about the markets and were asking about like stocks and had very specific questions. On this meetup, a lot of people were just happy to have a community. And a lot of people were really like the questions that I got and the questions that a lot of mods got were, what people can do to contribute to the community, how people can continue making more friends. There was a lot of networking at this event. It was really cool. I think we had about 200 people here in LA, so it was a bit smaller than the 350 that we had in New York, but it was very intimate, and I got to speak to literally every single person. And the number one piece of feedback I got from people were just their gratitude to be part of something. And I don't know if that was just an LA thing of people are nicer here or something like that. People just, genuinely were so happy. But people were very, very happy, and they wanted to show how happy they were and grateful they were. And that made me feel incredibly humbled and grateful. And I think a lot of the mods felt that as well as they were walking around and talking to people. So, yeah, YouTube is weird. It's saying we have 27 viewers here. So I don't think we'll know how many people are watching live today. YouTube's obviously having a weird bug. So for the 27 people that are here, thank you for being here. And thank you for all the people that came out to the LA meetup. I mean, really, really was a great time. It was fun. And I don't know, man. I'll talk more about it on Tuesday as we get into it tomorrow. But it's one of those things where after you talk to these many people and hear all their perspectives and why they started watching the channel, why they continue to watch the channel, just so many diverse people that I met. It was really cool. It was very, very, very cool. And again, we'll talk more about it in depth tomorrow. The other cool thing that people got to experience is my sister and my cousin were at this meetup. My cousin works in California, so that's why she flew down to LA to be part of it. My sister just decided to make an LA trip, and so it was really cool to have my family kind of experience what we've all built together in this community. They know I'm a YouTuber, they know I live stream and stuff like that, and they kind of understand what we built. But for them to be there in person and actually talk to people, and everyone was coming up to my sister saying we're so proud of Amit, and then my sister was like, yeah, good job. She was like struggling to say good job to me, that she was proud of me, but that was really cool. It was really fun. So very, very excited for being able to host another event. 2 for 2 Chicago is next on May 9th. And I think me and the team are getting a lot better at being able to throw these events, have better infrastructure to make sure that these events go well. So I think hopefully they'll just keep getting better and better over time. So thank you to everyone who came to the LA meetup. I'll have a lot more thoughts to talk about it tomorrow when I'm in the studio, can show pictures and can actually break down some of the stories of what happened. But overall, it was definitely a good time. Davis is there once again. How's the meetup for you?
It was great. I don't know. I'm excited. I got convinced to go to Chicago, so I'm actually loving these. I'm actually going to have my own room in Chicago. I can afford it now that we're green.
We went to the Santa Monica Pier yesterday, and we were dipping, and we were like, we're so screwed. It was like 6. That's why I couldn't do the Future show last night. Obviously, I was out. And then by the time we got back from the beach, we were like, maybe we're not as screwed, but maybe that's just the market flipping with our emotions. So we will see how this ends up playing out. At the end of the show, Davis will come back on the stream and he'll talk a little bit more about his experience at the meetup. But yeah, overall, it was a great time, and I thank you everybody for being here. Chicago should be fun, and the tickets for Chicago are on my website, akmedia.news. I'll put the link again in the chat. But I mean, realistically, dude, with the markets green or red, and that's the other cool thing about the meetup, a lot of people were just happy to have a community and to talk through a lot of stuff. And there was some stock market conversation here. I thought there would be more conversation about specifically what's happening, but ironically, not a lot of people asked about the war. A lot of people just accepted the war is inevitable. We have to deal with it. Trump is going to be Trump, and the markets will do what they do. A lot of people really just wanted to express their gratitude. Shout out to Julene. She is a pilot who flies across the entire country, and she found a way to make it to the meetup, and it was amazing to meet her and her mom. And it was quite emotional, the stories that she was telling at the table and telling me as well. So just very grateful for all the people I met, and I'll talk about a lot of more people that I met on Tuesday when we officially do the recap. So it was amazing. Thank you to all the mods again. Really appreciate it. Ray, Michelle, Doug, Austin, Davis, so many people that came out to make this a really fun time. Steve, Chris, Sam, it was just awesome having a lot of people there. Jason, Paper Gains, he was there. Got to talk to a bunch of people about TA. So overall, June, it was an awesome time for everyone to be there. All right, so let's get into it. We got a lot to talk about. YouTube's tripping me out with this 26 people are here thing, because it helps to know how many people are watching, and that kind of helps to allow me to transition to different topics between the streams. That's kind of why I don't stream on X, because it doesn't give you an actual live number. But nonetheless, I'm going to assume there are 26 people here, and I'm talking to you 26 people the whole time. And hopefully we kind of transition through topics and have the flow of this still work out the way it should be. So we are green in the pre-market. Yeah, the poll should be, are you here right now? Yes and no. No, but then a bunch of you are gonna click no. But still, that's gonna show me the number of votes. So that's actually not a crazy. Hold on, that's actually a good idea. Let's try this today. Let's try this. Okay, so the poll is, are you here currently right now? Well, YouTube's bugging, bro. Google stock is too volatile to be fucking making these mistakes. Are you watching the stream currently right now? YouTube is showing bugs. All right, so just put a yes or a no. That'll help me understand what's going on. All right, so we're up in the pre-markets. Why are we up? Mr. Donnie T is tweeting some good stuff, and I guess that's what the market's like. By the way, this is the picture. This is I just want to say, short the market every time we do a meetup, because I don't know why it happens, But I guess the stock market like gods do not like these meetups, or they think we're like a little bit too happy to celebrate being investors, even if we're not like celebrating being rich, because we definitely weren't doing it this time. But every time we have a meetup, just the week before Short the Market, this was a picture of our good friend Erwin. This is the second picture that I posted of him in February. I posted a picture of him looking at Rocket Lab being down from like 99 to 70, and this time it was from 70 to 61. And this was at the hotel. As you can see, a lot of pain on Friday. Friday was disgusting, dude. Friday was absolutely disgusting. And we made up a little bit of what we lost on Friday, but it was not necessarily fun. Most people commented, why are there shoes on the couch? That's what I think most people were upset about in this picture, but it was ugly. Friday was ugly for a variety of reasons. And we had a lot of headlines over the weekend that were also pretty damn ugly, but you're getting some level of reversal. And the reason for that reversal goes into a variety of different things. So first, let's start off with the Trump tweet, which kind of is the main reason for this. This is what Trump tweeted this morning. The United States of America is in serious discussions with a new and more reasonable regime to end our military operations in Iran. As you can see, the first sentence, end our military operations. That's what the algos are picking up, and that's what they're happy about. Great progress has been made, but if for any reason a deal is not shortly reached, which it probably will be, again, probably will reach a deal. That's another thing the algos like. And if the Strait of Hormuz is not immediately open for business, we will conclude our lovely stay in Iran by blowing up, completely obliterating all of their electric generating plants, oil wells, and Karg Island, which we have purposefully not yet touched. This will be in retribution for our many soldiers and others that Iran has butchered and killed over the old regime's 47-year-old reign of terror. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So Trump is making an argument that we have already had a regime change by killing the old regime. I don't necessarily know if that is a regime change, but nonetheless, he is making the argument that that is a regime change. And he's saying in the first couple sentences of this quote that the deal is going to happen soon in terms of a peace treaty, and we are going to be able to, resolve all the issues, which won't require us to blow up the Karg Island and hit the energy infrastructure, etc. Okay, sounds kind of good, right? Enough for the markets to feel a little happy. Then you have this quote that a lot of people are referencing today, which is just absolutely crazy. This guy apparently is one of the speaker of the parliaments in Iran. I don't know his exact official title, but he is an official person representing the Iranian regime. He tweets this yesterday. Heads up. Pre-market so-called quote-unquote news or truth is often just a setup for profit taking. Basically, it's a reverse indicator. Do the opposite. If they pump it, short it. If they dump it, go long. See something tomorrow, you know the drill. This is crazy, bro. This is one of the Iranian representatives saying if Trump comes out tomorrow and says a Truth Social push that is friendly and says that everything's going to be okay, you should lean into that tweet of the year, right? Like absolutely crazy. Short the market on that news because you're going to get a great entry, or take profits because it's all fake. And then you have the Iranian foreign minister coming out this morning after Trump tweeted his post and says, we have no direct talks with the U.S., only communication through intermediaries. U.S. peace proposals to Iran have been unrealistic, unreasonable, and excessive, which is obviously what they're going to say, right? They're going to make that argument every time, even if they are negotiating. So I don't know if the setup today is once again going to be what it's been over the past couple of days, which is, Trump says something good, we get excited about it. This is exactly what happened last Monday. And as a result of Trump getting excited or the markets getting excited, that is an opportunity to then gain a lot of momentum, especially when you get some of these reports that come out, which happened over the weekend. The Wall Street Journal says Trump is weighing a military operation to extract nearly 1,000 pounds of uranium from Iran. This is considered a complex and risky mission that would likely put American forces inside the country for days or longer. Trump believes this could help accomplish his central goal of preventing Iran from making a nuclear weapon. Trump has also encouraged his advisors to press Iran to agree to surrender the material. The U.S. and Iran have yet to engage in direct negotiations to end the war. And then obviously the big headline yesterday, which came out at around 7 p.m., and that's what made the futures get a lot more ugly, is that the U.S. now has over 50,000 troops deployed in the Middle East. Quote from the New York Times, at almost a third of the size of the continental U.S., Iran is 93 million people, taking, let alone holding, a deeply complex country of its size and complexity and weaponry with 50,000 troops is not doable. Obviously making the argument that 50,000 people can't take over a country with 93 million people. So, there has been some articles stating we're going to get up to 100,000 troops, which would still be not that many troops relative to the population, but it would be a sizable increase in terms of the advantage the U.S. has been having over the past couple of weeks when it comes to Iran. The other, so that's like a weird headline, right? Because if we're deploying troops, are we deploying them just for precaution, or do we legit actually have the basis to reasonably think we're going in? But on top of that, Trump then says negotiations are going so well, and this was last night, this was not this morning, but once again, it's kind of factoring into the algorithms. Things are going so well that we essentially are getting 20 boats of oil, is what Trump is making the argument for from the Iranian negotiators as a sign of good faith. So let's pull this clip up right here. He was on Air Force One yesterday, and the algos started to reverse when he said this, because maybe we are actually getting some negotiations at this point.
2 days ago, and then they added another 2, so it was 10 boats. And now today they gave us as a tribute, I don't know, I can't define it exactly, but they gave us, I think out of a sign of respect, 20 boats of oil, big boats of oil, going through the Hormuz Strait. And that's taking place starting tomorrow morning. Over the next couple of days, a lot of boats. And I would only say that we're doing extremely well in that negotiation. But you never know with Iran, because we negotiate with them and then we always have to blow them up. Whether it's the B-2 bombers or just terminating, as an example, the Iran nuclear deal done by Barack Hussein Obama, probably the worst deal we've ever done as a country, one of the dumbest deals we've ever done. But I terminated it, unfortunately, otherwise right now they'd have a nuclear weapon. Then we did the attack with the B-2 bombers and we stopped them from having nuclear. And now we had to blow them up again. And we will probably, I think we'll make a deal with them, pretty sure. But it's
So Trump says, I think we're going to make a deal with them. We are going to get these 20 boats. The market started liking that, because if we're going to get 20 boats, it's going to be a sign of good faith by the Iranians. You had the other headline on Saturday, which got the markets upset as well, which is that the Houthis are now going to join the IRGC in defending the Islamic State, and as a result of that, you have another faction that's going to be joining the war, and they would potentially be closing off a strait in the Red Sea. I didn't even know there was a strait in the Red Sea that also was responsible for a decent chunk of oil, but apparently there is. And so, we'll see how much of an implication that has over the coming days. Prices of oil, crude was at 102 last night. I think we are probably below that. We are at 100, so it's still up there at 100, and well, we're at 101. It's not that much below 102 last night. But here's the question to everybody. Do people think that this is legit? The Trump 20 boats argument, the deals are going well argument, the negotiations are progressing argument, the idea that we are likely making some level of progress, which means, do you think the market's calling a bottom here is the question. We are definitely oversold. And we'll talk about some of the technical factors and a lot of other things that happened yesterday in regards to signals, potentially some alpha in the market of people saying that, yes, we are oversold. Meta was almost below 500 last night when the futures opened. We're at 533. Do you believe it? Do you believe Mr. Donnie T here? Because if you do, you buy into the strength, which is relative strength compared to how far we are down compared to the highs. If not, you either get a better short or you sell into the strength and, you try to make at least a little bit of money before we go down lower. I see the majority of people saying no, even though YouTube is showing there are 62 people in the chat. The majority of people are saying no. Davis said, of course not. So Davis says, of course not. But he was the happiest person last night when we got this V-shape. He was the absolute happiest person when we got this V-shape. See, we all want to believe it, right? I want to believe it too. I agree with the majority of you. It's hard to believe it right now, but it's also hard to go net short because, again, if you think this war is going to continue for like another year, yeah, you can go net short. But if you think it's going to come to some level of conclusion, which I think all of us can objectively agree, Trump wants to taco out of this. Whether or not you think he will, whether or not you think he has the capacity to, is a different question. But I think all of us can tell just by the way he's talking. He wants to get back to lower oil, Dow 50K. Like I don't think he wants this to continue. But shout out to the 20% of people that voted no on the poll. But obviously time will tell if he actually is able to get out of this. And right now it'd be nice to see if he could. So time will indeed tell. Let's do a new poll and let's see what people think if we actually stay green or red today. I'm really hoping we stay green, dude. It's just not fun to be down 1 or 2% every other day. We got some interesting macro stats that kind of show how oversold we are to make it feel like it is time to actually get a reversal. But I mean, who knows at this point? Friday was just so ugly, and it continued towards the end of the day. Like, it was a real flush out we had on Friday. So, either we were going to get a little bit of a bounce, or that flush out was going to be the bottom falling out. And we were really green in the pre-market. Bitcoin is kind of your barometer of super risk on momentum. And if this were to flip and go like red on the day, which means Bitcoin reversed by a couple $1,000, Tesla probably would go from 365 down below 360. Seeing that happen versus what happened on Friday would just be a continuation of downward momentum, which means everything we're seeing right now is fake. And that wouldn't be fun, but it would be something that we are used to given the price action in February. I mean, the weird thing about the price action this morning is Chevron, Exxon are up 1 or 2%. VG is up, but growth stocks are up. And usually that doesn't happen. Usually the oil stocks kind of go down while the growth stocks go up, or vice versa. VG hit almost 18 last night. It's at 1775 right now. It's a little weird, and I can understand if people are skeptical of what's going on right now. Bill Ackman, he says to buy the dip. So Bill Ackman came out. Obviously, Bill Ackman is on the side of the war. He is a supporter of us doing this. He has all his life been supporting the idea of us taking out the Iranians and having a different regime. So politically, he has made no he has not hid his concerns or his beliefs that the Iranians do need to be eliminated and we need to have a different regime. But if you look past his political beliefs and look at him as just an investor and not someone who's in support of the war for his politics, he thinks that the market is cheap. Quote, some of the highest quality businesses in the world are trading at extremely cheap prices. Ignore the mainstream media. One of the most one-sided wars in history that will end well for the U.S. and the world, and we have the potential for a large peace dividend. One of the best times in a long time to buy quality. Ignore the bears. I think there's a lot of people that agree with him, but I also think a lot of people are thinking that his politics are dictating the capacity for him to be excited about the war and as a result be supportive of the equity markets, which if they do well, then obviously the financing of the war and Trump's ability to navigate the war look really well. It's really hard for Trump to keep the war going if the markets are falling every single day. It's a lot easier for him to at least have some level of legitimacy if the markets can feel that the U.S. is going to win at the end and this is not going to be a prolonged issue. The fact that crude is at 100 and we're up 1% in the pre-markets is weird, but maybe it just proves how unbelievably oversold we are, which, the market can keep going down. It doesn't have to stop at any artificial level. So I guess at 9:30 when the market opens, we'll see exactly how the algos interpret this. And when big money comes in, does it actually come out or does it go back into the market? The other reason this pre-market green is weird, and again, I would much rather like to go back to New Jersey today being green on the day. But the other reason it's weird, just objectively, is why would all the algos that sold off the market on Friday come back in on Monday morning on a Trump tweet? I mean, was the tweet that good? I mean, Trump said negotiations are going well. It sounds relatively similar to what he said over the past couple of weeks. And the market was immune to what he said on Friday because he did try to pump the markets on Thursday in the overnight markets and Friday in the pre-markets by putting out more tweets. And the markets just didn't care. Why do they care today? Maybe we got too oversold. Maybe the market's like enough is enough. Meta can't be trading at 15 times earnings, or maybe there is some real legitimacy to what Trump is saying. Time will tell, but it's one of those things where I don't even know if I could trust it. I think a lot of people don't know if they can trust it. Hopefully today we just hold on to a green day and we can make some momentum to the upside as we get into the month of April. The 20 ships of oil coming Wednesday are really important. I agree. And it is nice that Trump said that. And maybe that is a legitimate way for the Iranians to show in good faith they were negotiating by allowing the Strait to open up to those 20 ships. But is that going to be enough for them? I mean, 20 ships is not going to do anything to oil prices. It's just a perception of what that could do to long-term oil prices for the war ending, which hopefully is enough to get the markets to be a little bit more excited. Palantir right there, up about 1%. Quick update on Palantir. They extended their partnership with Stellantis, which was really nice to see. So they announced the renewal and expansion of its partnership with Stellantis for an additional 5 years. Stellantis, a massive automotive company. And so you have that update this morning. They started in 2016. They're supporting them in the ongoing industrialization and secure use of data and artificial intelligence across the company. I met a ton of people at the LA meetup that changed their life with Palantir. Every time I go to these meetups, it's really cool because there's at least 50% of the audience there that was watching in 2022. I mean, I met a lot of OG people that were watching, when I had like 500, 600 subscribers. And it's just really cool to put a face on some of those people that have been in the chat for so long. RF Andy, if he's here, he brought his wife there. And it was just awesome to meet some of these people that were there early. And, this company has changed a lot of lives, and they continue to change a lot of lives. I did get some questions on, what I think about the trajectory of Palantir, and my conviction on them has never been stronger. If anyone wants to learn more about them, watch those AIPCon interviews, because I think that will continue to reinforce how much people have realized Palantir software is special. But, the valuation's up there. The valuation's aggressive. The valuation can sustain itself if the market and the macro holds up. And the fact that NVIDIA got below 170, this is becoming a joke on some of these names. Meta, obviously, don't even have to say much about that. So yes, valuations are, I would say, relatively cheap compared to the growth rates. There were some questions at the meetup as well about is the market cheap? And it's like, if you think the macro recovers, the market is maybe not the market. The S&P is still relatively expensive compared to its historical average on a PE basis. But a lot of these stocks, the Max 7 are all in bear markets at this point, outside of Tesla and Apple. Micron trading at 5 times forward. There's a lot of names. SoFi hit 14. Robinhood, for the growth that they're putting up, I think still trading at these levels. If you assume we get through a decent macro, should not be below $70. There are plenty of deals in this market. You just have to ask yourself, is it time to venture into buying into strength? And that becomes a broader question around macro, and we'll see what ends up happening with the war over the long term. Rushil, thank you for being a channel member. The thing I'm afraid about is if we have boots on the ground, Taiwan may be at risk, and currently that may be more important than oil. We have not talked about the Taiwan angle so much. If China were to make a move on Taiwan in the midst of the U.S. putting boots on the ground, that would be devastating for the markets. I'm just hoping that doesn't happen. There's not much we can do if it does happen. Maybe the Chinese feel that would be a perfect opportunity because there's so much chaos going on that no one's going to stop them, and the U.S. troops are going to be diverted, and that will give the Iranians a lot of confidence to keep doing what they're doing. So that's an interesting angle. I hope that doesn't happen, but yes, obviously it would not be the best if that ended up playing through. Rafi, thank you for the $5 super chat. Love the meetup on Saturday. Shout out to Sanjeet and Sebastian. Sanjeet and Sebastian, they were awesome. Again, I'll talk more about it and give you guys some stories of the meetup on Tuesday when I get back to the studio. But yeah, it's very, 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 very humbling. And, the cool thing about the meetups is that it also reminds me why I do this as aggressively as I try to build and pursue this. There's a reason for all of that. And the reason are these meetups. It's, it's not money. We don't take sponsorships on the channel. We've never taken a dime to mention a stock or anything like that. It really is those human moments where we can look at someone in the face and have a conversation about their life and realize that so many of us just care about the market. We just care about having, that's the number one thing I got from this meetup. So many people just deeply care about finding like-minded individuals, and they just don't have that in their family or friend circles. And that's the really number one piece of feedback I got, that so many people don't have that community, and they are just desperate to be in a group chat with other people who they can talk about with the markets. And so it's just really, really cool to meet people there and to help make those connections happen. Okay, so what else do we have going on in the broader equity markets? We talked about some of the Trump stuff. If you're just coming in, that's why we're green. Trump said the war negotiations are going well. Hopefully that continues at 9:30. YouTube is being weird with the viewer count. I don't know why it's doing that today, but it is. So we just got to deal with it. 61 people that are here. You guys are the OGs. We had a couple of other macro things that I think are important to talk about. It's weird because you have all these headlines that were bearish yesterday, and then you have the Trump tweet this morning. So all the stuff about Carg Island and the troops, it's like none of that really matters based on this Trump tweet anymore. That's how fast moving this market is. That's another piece of feedback I got from the meetup, and this was very similar to New York. A lot of people really do enjoy the value coming from the stream in terms of the current events and current headlines, and then being able to interpret analysis on those headlines on the spot. And I take a lot of pride in that as well. But it's so fast moving, and a lot of stuff that I was going to talk about this morning kind of didn't matter anymore after Trump tweeted. Like I had a bunch of things lined up. I was like, all right, we're going to touch on these points. And it's like, nope, they're not that relevant anymore. Or their relevance is not as meaningful to price action, because obviously prices have gone green based on what Trump has said. And so this is the nature of this market. It is quick, and you've just got to be ready to adapt to it. Take a look at this stat right here. More than half of the S&P 500 stocks are now below their 50-day and their 200-day moving average. This is another sort of macro thing that I think is potentially causing some of the green in the pre-market, because we're oversold. Like, we're over freaking sold. It feels like we're oversold. There's plenty of metrics to indicate we're oversold. Now, could we go lower? 100% on a fundamental basis, but on a technical basis, and even, Jason was talking about this, like, it does feel like nibbling here at certain levels is not crazy if you have some capital. Obviously, if you want to look for direct approval and confirmation that we are V-shaping, or that we have a chance to V-shape, and you might have to buy stuff 10% higher, but you're okay with having the peace of mind and buying higher, than you wait. But it does feel, and this is different from 2 weeks ago, because this stat you're looking at right here, combined with the Friday sell-off, is what kind of magnified how ugly some of this price action has become. And you also need price action to get to a decent area for these valuations to make sense in the context of the SpaceX IPO, Anthropic, OpenAI. They cannot go public in this environment unless you have S&P at least closer to 7,000, which hopefully we have a chance to get to. Morgan Stanley's Mike Wilson this morning. We continue to think these are the signs that the correction is much closer to its ending than the beginning stage. And hopefully, that is correct. But you do have some of the sell side coming out saying that we do think this correction is becoming overdone. Fear and greed went from 10 to 14 this morning. So we are still in extreme fear. But we were at 10 in the pre-markets when things were the worst. And now we are at 14. Fannie and Freddie, yes, Burry and Bill Ackman are tweeting that this is the most asymmetric opportunity in the market. It's a 10x. I have never done a full level due diligence on Fannie and Freddie. I mean, I kind of understand Bill Ackman's argument, but not really. So I would need to take some time and sit and look at how excited he is about Fannie and Freddie. But he's been saying this for a couple years now, that he's been excited about Fannie and Freddie. Now he just thinks the prices are getting ridiculous as mortgage rates go higher. And so if you think that inevitably rates are going to come down, you think also that the housing market is going to open up. Unfortunately, we don't have rate cuts priced in for 2026 yet. Probability for a hike is still up there. Although that probability has gone down. It was 12% last week. Now it's 3%. So as you can see, this is another reason the markets are going green. It's like the probability that we would hike is starting to come back down, which is crazy because we shouldn't be hiking, but at least those probabilities are reflecting that. And it's all based on this idea that negotiations are going well. I still firmly believe, and a lot of people at the meetup also said this as well, and this is kind of the sentiment that retail has had for a long time, which is that if we announce a ceasefire, if we announce all right, we're done, if we announce some 15-point proposal and deal that has been reached, we're going to rally, and we're going to rally hard. And maybe that rally gets faded after a little bit. Maybe it's not as aggressive as the V-shape that we saw back in April of 2025, but we are not going to be stuck trading at some of the levels that we are on certain stocks because there's just too much money out there. There's way too much money in the money market funds. Like on Thursday, how much money did we add to money markets? We actually decreased. Wow, 53 billion on Thursday. So maybe you already had some dip buying last week as we decreased by 53 billion. The week before that, we added, I think, 30 billion. Still 7.8 trillion on the sidelines. Rates don't need to come down, so markets don't have to be excited to take money out of sort of these task risk-free rates, but it would be nice to see that happen. And given the earnings multiples that these stocks are trading at, if money is on the sideline and it's excessive, you might have that start to get allocated. Yeah, the VIX is down right here in the pre-market as well. I really want to see this 930 open, and if we get a reversal, or if this ends up flipping when we end up getting live. Japan told the G7 countries they should prepare for further oil release if needed. That's another big headline about if we can get more oil coming out from these IEA countries, which would be, relevant to at least buying some more time. We are getting to that 2-week deadline now after we released 400 million barrels a couple of weeks ago. Donovan says, I read that Morgan Stanley tweet earlier. It just makes me feel even more that this was a major manipulation for Wall Street to get in on the stocks they missed last year, and now they're trying to pump. That theory is also very interesting, that Wall Street missed a lot of the gains of last year. And, it's not that easy to get in a bull market a massive dip. I mean, remember, for the past 7 months, we've been flat. We haven't had, at least on the index, like the Qs, the S&P, a massive dip. And now we are seeing an 8% drawdown from the highs, which at least is enough to get some major institutional investors excited. This was also, to your point about manipulation, 6 p.m., the S&P fell 0.7% last night. 10 p.m., the S&P futures were 30 points away from correction territory, aka a 10% drop. 11 p.m., we went green. So 8 p.m. California time. This is when Davis and I were thinking we weren't, as we were at Olive Garden with everyone who was here at the meetup. Shout out to all the people that came with us, and Olive Garden felt better to eat knowing that futures were green. Then at 8:30 a.m., we had $900 billion of market cap after at 7:25 today, this morning, Trump said great progress has been made on peace talks. So, like, yeah, is this manipulating? I don't know. Is this just Trump doing what Trump does? Are people profiting in and out of this? My gut tells me yes, they kind of have to be, but this is crazy, the times we're living through. And hopefully for all of us as retail investors, we can just get a deal to end this war and we can go back to analyzing the markets and not the politics of this war every single day. The Olive Garden slander will not be tolerated, okay? It is a phenomenal, family-friendly establishment. They literally have a dish called the Tour of Italy. For those saying it's not authentic Italian food. It is the Tour of Italy. I don't know how anyone can say it's not authentic. So, yeah, Olive Garden is the best. Bitcoin, 68K. Not bad. 68,000 on Mr. Bitcoin. SLB is up a little bit. Schlumberger, Google's up 1%. Tesla's up 1%. CrowdStrike's up 2.3. Apple's up a little bit. SoFi's up 1.23. Adobe's up. Palo Alto's up. You do have some ugly private credit headlines that continue to come through, but the private credit names and the banks are up in the pre-market. They're not necessarily seeing that pain. By the way, Kevin Warsh apparently is going to get ready to be nominated as soon as the week of April 13th. So in a couple of weeks, we are going to start to see the testimony of Kevin Warsh and see if he officially gets approved. We still have this problem with J-Pal being investigated. So J-Pal said he might not leave his term until the investigation continues, which, you know, is going to be a little weird because you have a new guy that's ready to get in. So maybe the market's going to like that. You know, Kevin Warsh super bullish on crypto. Clarity Act obviously has some issues that has not fully gone through yet. So maybe he's going to say some stuff that gets the market more effectively bullish in terms of what's happening with the crypto markets. And we'll see how that plays out. Goldman said this morning, markets are misreading Fed as oil spike fuel rates fear. The bank points to 1990 when the markets expected tightening after an oil shock, but the Fed ultimately cut rates as growth weakened. The bottom line is the markets are pricing in higher rates as per Goldman, but slowing growth could force the Fed in the opposite direction. Now, this isn't necessarily bullish because even if oil goes up and the market expects us to hike rates because of the inflationary pressures, if that doesn't happen, that's fine. But if growth slows down and earnings slow down, that's not good. So it's a double-edged sword. If growth slows down and we have to cut rates for that reason, which is, you know, the number one reason we usually cut rates, not to combat inflation, which is why the past 2 years have been so weird in regards to the rate cutting cycle, that would actually be bearish, not bullish, unless the growth is so strong that it can overcome the higher interest rates, which is basically what happened in 2023, 2024, because AI has led to this massive new productivity. So, you know, that's where the AI thesis continues to be relevant. And that's what I think the market's kind of pricing in the pre-markets right here, that, you know, the tech earnings are still phenomenal and they're not going to necessarily die out. Look at the S&P making a new high in the pre-market, 3 cents away from 640. Very, very curious in the next 4 minutes. Do we open up and do we go fully green? Do we really ride this wave up? Can we have a serious green day? 2% on the S&P, maybe 1.5%, at least holding the pre-market gain of 1%? Or is this a massive head fake? And is this going to be uglier from what we have to notice? Why are there only 69 people watching? YouTube is weird. YouTube is weird. So for the 69 people that are here, we are the ones that are watching this. The Lakers game was amazing for those that are asking. Shout out to Mr. Matt Hollis. I mean, this guy is an absolutely incredible guy. He works and manages a fund that gets access to some of these opportunities, and he was able to take us out there, and it was just incredible. It was pretty incredible. I have never seen a basketball game live in my life. I mean, I've seen like one college basketball game, but I've watched the NBA for years, and so getting to, and Bron and Luka played, by the way, so it was amazing. But just seeing this, like, this was the view from the suite we had, and it was just crazy. It was just absolutely crazy. There's Bron right there. Like, just being that close to seeing the Lakers, it was incredible, dude. And they won. It was a close game until they won. So It was an amazing experience. I got to take my sister, my cousin, Davis. It was about 18 of us that got to experience this. A bunch of the mods came out. So he got us a party bus as well to get to the Lakers game. So shout out to Mr. Matt Hollis, just absolutely awesome guy. He didn't have to do any of this, but that's the other cool thing about these meetups. I mean, you meet people that have such an affinity for the channel, and they feel, they feel a real sense of community, and then they want to kind of express some of that gratitude. And so, he hit me up a couple of weeks ago and said, "Hey, do you want to go to Lakers game?" And I was like, "Yeah, that'd be awesome. Can I bring some people?" And he let us bring 18 people, and we got to really experience Los Angeles in a cool way. So it's cool, man. These meetups are a way to live life, travel the world. We'll be in Singapore soon. Get to have these little mini vacations, even though it is a lot of work, but at least the day after we get to relax and explore the city a little bit, and get to connect with all the people that continue to get value from the content every day and share ideas and make new friends. It is a really cool thing. And so very grateful for it. Very grateful for the people that came out, and we will continue doing it as we continue progressing towards the year. All right, here we go. 40 seconds. Let's see what happens. Put in the chat right now, red or green. What do you think? I think the majority of you said green in the chat. If I'm not wrong, yep, about 65% of you think you're holding on to this green. 62% say green, 38% say red. I hope this can continue. We got 20 seconds. Let's see. A bunch of people are saying green fade to red. I would not be surprised if that happens, but I hope it doesn't. I hope it doesn't. Here we go. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Monday, March 30th, last day here from sunny Los Angeles. The stock market is now open. All right, wake your ass up. S&P goes green, 639.40. We are green on the day. Let's see if we can break through 640. That's kind of the major test right here. Getting above 640 would be nice. We are getting a little bit of red candle down below from 640 that we hit in the pre-market. 639.62 as we are up 0.86%. Meta is up 1.65%. CrowdStrike's up 3%. Google is up 1%. Micron goes red. Interesting. This one was actually pretty green. It was up almost 3% pre-market. That's one of the only tech names along with VG. VG obviously going red for a reason. But we are seeing that go red. Nvidia loses a little bit of momentum. That also has an ugly red candle, 167.90 from 169. AppLovin goes red. CoreWeave goes red. Nebius goes red. Lemonade goes red. I don't like seeing some of these names go red, but the majority of the market's still green. Where's the S&P? S&P is 640. Okay, S&P is 640. That's good. That's good. Is it just semis? Is it just semis today? NVIDIA trying to get back up to 168. Semis are all green. Let's see if any of them actually flip red. Micron just went green again by like 10 cents, but Micron just went green. Lam Research is up. Taiwan is up. Marvell is up. ARM is up. ARM, again, massive earnings guidance from last week, which is getting the street excited. Broadcom fell below 300 on Friday, 304 right there. That's nice. Intel, that's up about 1.13%. Where is Amcor? Is that green? Amcor is green by 2%. Bloom Energy is red by 2%. So Bloom goes down. Apple goes up. Meta goes up. S&P still holding 640. Tesla is 367. That's up 1.26%. That's not too bad. You're seeing that momentum there as well. AMD, that's going green. Firefly, the space names are up. All the airlines are down. Obviously, oil prices going up is not a good thing for that. Amazon goes green after Amazon fell below 200 on Friday. That wasn't fun. Zeta at 1482. That's up 1.83%. Red Cat's up 3%. Some of the drone stocks getting some love. Software up 2% on IGV. Salesforce is up 2%. Adobe's up 2%. ServiceNow's up 2%. The Trade Desk is up 2.35%. DoorDash up 2%. I mean, you're seeing a decent chunk of momentum to the upside. The Qs are up 1%, which is also nice to see. Uber, are we down on Uber? We are up on Uber, even though we're below 70. 69.73. Where is Palantir? Are we holding 145? No, 143, but that's at least still green on the day. S&P not breaking out of 640. Not breaking out of 640. It's at least above the 632 lows. I mean, at one point we were almost below 630 pre-market, 639.84. Reddit has been a disaster, but it's not because of their growth. It's because of Meta. And Reddit gets compared to Meta. If Meta is trading at a pretty ugly multiple, it's going to be hard for Reddit to get that same multiple. 120 right there. That's down 1.5%. NVIDIA holding on. NVIDIA back up 1%. NVIDIA going for 170, which would be very nice to see. Meta right there, 533, as that one is up 1.4%. 1.4%. Friday, the markets are closed, by the way. So we have a long weekend. Friday, the markets are closed. Fannie Mae is up 15%. Bill Ackman, very excited for Fannie and Freddie. Fannie Mae, that stock 15% up on the day. Yeah, so it is going to be a long weekend. Friday, the markets are closed for Good Friday. So, something to think about as we get into the weekend. S&P again, 639.87. Bitcoin at 67,950. AMD is getting a nice pump. Yes, it did get an upgrade this morning. AMD up 2.8%. Compared to the other semis, it is up relative to the other semis. It's up a lot more than the other ones. Private equity names, some bad headlines this morning, but still green, 1.42%. It does feel like a weak green. I agree. It does feel like a weak green. Why are data centers getting dumped? Well, remember, we have that Bernie Sanders bill that got introduced into Congress last week around the data center moratorium. I don't think it's going to have any chance of passing, but the perception of it is not good for Nebius, Iran, and CoreWeave. In general, Iran is in a tougher situation. They have $6 billion of equity they can issue whenever they want. So I think the market kind of knows if Iran pumps, it'll be issued. Nebius is in a little bit of a better spot. They already raised their capital, but still not something the market loves. And then CoreWeave obviously has a lot of debt. So if the markets get ugly, that could be something that unfortunately affects CoreWeave. So data center names are selling off a bit. Oracle, are we at 140 still? Oracle is at 140. It's a little weird, guys. Like it shouldn't be that weird because this is what kind of happens every time. Like if it's super red, it either fades to a very little bit of red, maybe flat, maybe green. If it's super green, it fades out. The anomaly we had on Friday was it was super red and it continued to be super red. And we have yet to have one of those days where it's super green and it continues to be super green. Like we really have not seen that yet. We've had days where we're super green and we end green, but it's not like super green. But Friday we had that on the red side, and that's why it felt so bad. We are seeing some of this momentum fade. S&P down about 40% or 40% of the gains, let's just say. We were up 1%, now we're up 0.6%. So 40% of those gains have been eliminated so far. And you're seeing that in some of these other tech stocks that are losing a bit. Micron goes red again. Argon goes red. CoreWeave officially below 75. Lemonade down. The photonics plays are also down. Reports of satellite imagery showing a fire at the Hashban Furija oil pipeline pumping station. Cactus, is that in Iran or is that in Saudi Arabia? I think that's in Iran. And that's probably not a good headline, but nonetheless, we've seen many of those. I mean, the other thing we saw over the weekend is that there was a Saudi Arabian refinery that said they're going to be cutting their output for the next year. And that refinery was doing 7 million barrels of oil a day. And the refinery president came out and just said, we can't produce oil anymore. Like we're in a really tough situation. So, take out 7 million barrels being produced a day from the global oil supply is not really good, which is why crude is pumping for a reason. And it's weird the markets are pumping if crude is pumping 101.64. Crude futures are basically the same as last night now. Crude futures are basically the same as last night. I mean, we were at 102 last night. We're at 101.64. So really, you've not seen any weakness in crude oil futures. The S&P being up here, again, a bit confusing. Palantir just went red. Like theoretically, you would imagine we go red on this. But maybe there's enough of the negotiation talk from Trump to not have this continue. Man, NVIDIA just went red. All right, maybe it's a matter of the S&P holding on now. Rocket Lab back below 60. Yeah, that was the pre-market price for Rocket Lab. It V-shaped a little above that at 7 a.m. when Trump tweeted. BMNR now owns 4% of all ETH supply. I imagine they bought more ETH today, which is fine, but crypto, unfortunately, is still not in the best situation. VIX, where's the VIX? Let's see. Mr. VIX is 30. VIX 30. Wall Street Journal, a new rule could allow private credit into your 401k. Maybe that's why the private credit names are up today. I hope retail is not bombarded with private credit in their 401k because that would be exit liquidity, but that could be a reason why some of these names are getting a bit of a bounce. VIX right there is 30, up, still down 3%, but you do have a VIX 30 right there. AMD, that's fading. Meta, that's fading. Tesla, that's fading. Bloom went red. Amcor went red. NVIDIA officially going red. VG going red as well. S&P is fading. 637.89. It was at 640. There is your little bounce to the downside there, as we're seeing more of this ugliness coming. Micron's been red for 7 days. I mean, it's been a lot of the semi names that have just not been able to catch a bid. Again, Micron had one of the best earnings that we've seen in 3 years from all the semiconductor names. It's just a really tough macro for the market to be excited about it. HIMS back below 20. Celsius up a little bit on the day. American Airline is down. All the cruise lines are down. Navius 97, that's continuing to go down. You know, it's funny because that Iranian parliament speaker that tweeted fade the market open tweet, it's kind of crazy because the thing is he's been right. Every market open green day has been just immediately been red after, people take their profits here. And the fact that he's saying this is what Trump is doing, this is his plan to control the oil markets, it went viral yesterday because a lot of people are like, yeah, that's kind of what we feel is happening. And today's another example of that. The 10 years at 4.35, so at least we're not above 4.4 like we were on Friday. But we are still down. We are indeed still down. Palo Alto. Okay, so Palo Alto should be up. This one is going opposite of CrowdStrike, right? Palo Alto's up 5% because, well, CrowdStrike's up 4% as well. The CEO bought $10 million worth of stock. I mean, I like it. 10 million is not a small amount of money. It's not 1 or 2, 3 million. I mean, $10 million is a lot of money. And for the Palo Alto CEO to just be like, this is ridiculous and buy it on the open market, I liked seeing that as a sign of confidence. And this was, again, the stock got sold off with the Claude Code new security model that was rumored to eliminate the necessity for cybersecurity companies, which, again, sounds ridiculous because it is. And so he bought the dip, which was nice to see. We need more CEOs to come out and buy their own stock, and say, hey, enough is enough. It would be crazy if Zucks, who has more meta than he could ever need for many lifetimes, comes out and buys his own stock. I mean, if we see Zucks, who I don't think has ever done an insider buy, to be honest, I don't think he's ever bought his stock on the public market. That would be incredible to see. Meta right there, 534, up about 1.6% on the day. We wouldn't be going red if that Iran guy would stop saying we're not talking to them when we are here. It's just not important. Yeah, well, that goes back down to the different factions of the Iranian people, right? There's like the rebels that are saying one thing. There's the parliament speaker saying another thing. There's Turkey and Pakistan saying they're talking. And then you have the IRGC coming out saying we're not talking. Like, you do have a lot of conflicting headlines. I do personally believe they're talking. I think they are talking. I think there's some level of negotiations that are happening. I don't think Trump is lying about, literally every element of the negotiations. He's probably stretching the truth on some things, but at its core, I do think there is communication. I mean, Iran literally said we got the 15-point proposal and their response is now in transit. But the question is, how much influence do the people that he's talking to actually have on the IRGC and the Ayatollah? That's the bigger question. And no one knows that, which goes back to why the markets might be fading. This is like they just don't know what to trust in any meaningful way. It definitely feels like markets are manipulated. I understand how people can get the gist of that. If we go green on a tweet and then we go red after a couple of minutes, like it feels like there's manipulation going on, even if you can't prove it. And that also really kills retail morale and momentum to buy into the strength, which makes it really hard to call a bottom in any meaningful way. Delta right there, down another 1%, along with the cruise lines and the airlines that are getting hit. Carnival actually going up on the day. They had some good earnings last week. RCL also up 1.6%. The airlines are down. Rocket Lab is down 2.86. Amit, does the market feel different this year? Yeah, the market feels like we have an overhang that is incredibly scary, quite frankly, when you kind of think of the logical extreme of what the war could turn into. But it also feels like earnings are going to fully be disrespected until this thing is resolved. And the one thing I also kind of pull back to is what a lot of people said at the meetup, which is that Trump cares about the midterms, right? Trump cares about not completely being a lame duck. And I don't see a world in which this war continues by the end of the year and he wins the midterms. I don't see the Republicans winning the House and the Senate if the war is continuing, because the level of marketing the Democrats will have to be able to push back against Trump and this pointless war, as they will call it, will be massive, right? And so I do think he's probably going to try to stop this before the midterms, but if it's becoming beyond his control, Bloom getting wrecked right here, down 7%, then markets are obviously going to be a tough spot. Oh, yeah. And then it doesn't help when, Trump, there's like, he's been saying some stuff that's just a little weird. And, then he mentioned Cuba yesterday. He's like, don't worry, Cuba's next. And it's like, it starts to not really help the market feel the confidence that the United States is going to stop going across the world and interfering with all these different geopolitical issues.
And that Cuba will be next. What did you mean by that exactly?
Who will be next?
Cuba.
Yeah, Cuba's going to be next. Cuba's a mess. It's a failing country, and they're going to be next. Within a short period of time, it's going to fail. And we will be there to help it out. We'll be there to help our great Cuban Americans out who were thrown out of Cuba. In many cases, their family members were mutilated and killed by Castro. Oh, Cuba's going to be next, yeah.
And that Cuba.
He's making the same argument that he made around the Iranian people of living under a dictatorship, which, morally, it sounds like, yeah, we want to liberate them. But realistically, the practical implication of trying to liberate them is not that easy. By the way, he had this quote to the Financial Times yesterday, which also was not interpreted as positively towards the markets. To be honest with you, my favorite thing is to take the oil in Iran, but some stupid people back in the US say, why are you doing that? But they're stupid people. So, when Trump says stuff like this, it also gets the market to think, wait a second, is he actually serious about trying to take over the oil, which means we have a more prolonged conflict. And so every time he says talks are going well, we should be really skeptical of that, because maybe talks aren't going well. And maybe this conflict is only getting worse. And then, if Cuba were to get into the mix, like it's confusing. It's very confusing. And then you have people saying, what's going on in Trump's mind? Because he was at some farmers conference on Friday, and this is what he said.
Thank everybody very much. And I'm asked to take a few questions. Unlike other politicians, they would like the questions screened. I don't ask for screening of the questions. You can ask me anything you want. You can talk sex. You can do whatever the hell you want. I'm here.
Now, look, some people will interpret that as a joke. Other people will say we're in the middle of a war, and that's just an incredibly weird thing to say. So it's like when that clip came out, by the way, that was at like 5 p.m. on Friday. Markets just went straight down. Like as soon as that clip came out, markets just another red candle. Like it was kind of comical. I was in the Uber, and I was like, well, that's not fun. So again, the question was, how do you feel about markets? I'm feeling very weird about it. As bullish as I want to be and optimistic as I want to be about earnings, when you have stuff like this going on, Cuba, Trump saying this stuff, and oil prices continuing to spike, we're going to take over Carg Island. it's hard to think the macro is in a relatively decent spot. The pre-market move, folks, has now faded 70%. We were up 0.35% on the day, 636. There's your red candle, 640 to 636. As you're seeing the markets fade off this move right now. Ugly, but let's see if this can kind of hold on. Thomas says, I really don't buy the whole Trump subverting the midterm stuff, but I will say it'll be kind of sketchy if he, as we got closer to the midterms, he's still doing obviously unpopular things. Yeah, it's also, it's a general political science kind of almost matter of fact that during a midterm year, you try not to rough up not only the markets, but just like your base's expectations of what you promised them to give them a reason to keep your party in power. And historically, when that has not gone in the right direction, we've seen people lose the midterms. We saw this in 2018 with Trump when he lost the midterms. And so, the markets crashed. We had rate hikes. Like, people were not happy. So markets aren't down as badly as 2018. They are ugly, but we're up a lot over the past couple of years, so people can still withstand it. I mean, if you zoom out, literally, you're probably doing a lot better than people give themselves credit for, which is something to remember. But if things get worse and leverage gets shaken out, I mean, we still have a record level of margin debt, 1.4 trillion in the United States. That's a lot of money that's still borrowed. That if that gets called away, you're just going to see a lot more people get upset and wonder, what was the reason for that to happen? They thought borrowing money or going on leverage or buying options on companies putting up incredible earnings was a reasonable thing to do. And obviously markets are always super volatile. But if something, that's the thing about the market. If your gains get eliminated for a reason that you think was avoidable, Nebia's right there down 5% of the day, that's when you start to get really pissed off. And the tariff stuff, the reason people were so pissed in April last year is because people thought the tariff stuff was avoidable. It didn't need to happen. And then Trump, taco would be V-shaped and everyone was happy. This one is just hard to taco out of, even if you think the war was unnecessary and pointless and you don't know exactly what we're getting from it. And that might have an impact on the influence of how people vote in the midterms. S&P getting hit. Micron, are we below 350? Micron, 345. Yeah, we are well below that. Wow, 3% of the day on Micron. As that one continues to go down. Austin says, I'm buying more Palantir based on a conversation I had at the meetup from two guys in the Navy who said they are all in. First of all, Austin, shout out to you. He came to the meetup, brought his fiance. It was super awesome to meet him. And he's been a mod for the past 4 years. So really, really happy that Austin came out and got to spend the weekend with us. Yeah, I met a couple people who are ex-Navy at the meetup. And they went all in Palantir back in 2022. This one person told me he took his entire wife's retirement and put it into Palantir at like $10-15, and obviously that's worked out really well. But they got their commitment by being on the field and seeing how valuable the software was. And it was very, I mean, and again, this is kind of the thing about the meetup. When you start to talk, I met a guy who took 100,000, turned it into 3 million on Tesla options. And then in 2022, it went back to 100,000. And it was a very depressing year. But then he ended up recovering it in the past couple of years in the bull market. So I met some OG Tesla millionaires that lost everything when Tesla collapsed in 2022. But, they ended up making it back on Palantir, Hood, and NVIDIA and riding back Tesla. But it's kind of crazy, some of the stories you hear. It really is kind of crazy. And, it sometimes deepens your convictions and opens up new perspectives for how people navigate the markets and obviously the individual stocks that they pick as well. All right, what else do we got going on? What else? Meta. Who's buying Meta? Who's buying this freaking Meta dip? 532. It was almost below 500 last night. Very curious who's taking advantage of this. 532 right there on Meta. Still green on the day. Is Powell speaking today? Or is he speaking tomorrow? Is that even streamed? Cactus, do you know if Powell's speaking today? Trump just did another Bloomberg phone interview. Let's get an update on that. Again, he does a bunch of these every day randomly. So let's listen to what he said today at 9:30. or 10:30. It might be at some random conference though, where he's not really talking about the markets. Let's see if he's. I'll pull it up. Let's see if we're actually gonna get something out of Powell today.
On the phone with the President of the United States, speaking to him about where we are in this war.
Very briefly, he said he's very busy this morning, but he wanted to reiterate that he thinks the United States is doing very well. The war, he says, is going, quote, unbelievably well. And then this is what he left me with that stuck with me. They want to settle. He said, that's all I can say. They want to settle. So right now, the President of the United States is projecting and socializing to me and the world that the Iranians want to settle, as this comes off the heels of his long Truth Social post where he's saying almost this is their last opportunity to go to the table, or there's going to be massive reckoning when it comes to what he is calling things that he wants to, quote, obliterate: electric generating plants, oil wells, Kharg Island, and maybe even desalination plants.
At the same time, the Iranians are denying they're engaging in a diplomatic effort. Through the Iranian state media again this morning, they say they didn't participate in the meetings in Pakistan. They say the U.S. demands are excessive. The president says we're making progress. I think we're all trying to figure out where precisely we're making progress.
Where is the progress made? Also, when his Truth Social post came out, when he talks about if a deal is not shortly reached, what does shortly mean? Are we talking about days? Are we talking about weeks? Or are we talking about months? So I think it's important to remember not so much what the president says, but what he does. And what has changed over the course of the last week is now we have Marines in the region. We also have soldiers in the region right now. And potentially, given the reporting over the weekend, the President of the United States is away sending even more.
There is.
You know, that's the confusing thing, because Trump keeps calling up these reporters and saying deals are going well, but military personnel keep increasing. And that's another reason I think these pumps get faded, because the market is just not exactly sure why military troops are going, even if it's for a precautionary reason, if the deals are going well. So until we get an official deal or some level of a potential for an official deal, the increased ground troops are definitely creating a lot more skepticism. Wow, S&P, 80% of the pre-market gains wiped out. Nvidia goes red, Apple goes red, Bitcoin holding up relatively well compared to the tech stocks, but that one down from the highs of the day. Google 274 goes red. Meta has not gone red yet. Oracle is red below 140. Oil is at 102.52. We are higher than where we were last night officially. Okay, so that's obviously a reason why tech stocks are having some pain. The VIX is at 30.6, almost at 31. SAS, are we up? SAS is somehow green today. So tech is getting sold off. Space is getting sold off. Memory. Wow. SanDisk below 600. South Korea below 120. Seagate below 375. Western Digital 263. Is Micron going to hold on to 340? Micron is $3 away from losing 340. This one's getting hit pretty hard right now. Celestica's down 5%. DoorDash is down. Orbs is back below $1. Where's that VCX nonsense? This Fundrise bullshit. Wow. Only 35% down. Not too bad. So if you got some exposure to Anthropic at 8 trillion, now you can get exposure to it at 3 trillion. It's fine. It's still cheap. Extreme Fear is 11. Fear and Greed. 11 on Extreme Fear and Greed. So we went from 14 to 11. From 14 to 11. Which I guess is decent. I guess that's decent. Puts just crossed calls on the Qs. Okay, so we got some more option flow coming in that's a bit more bearish. Wow, take a look at this, guys. This is the option flow for Friday. So I know this is a couple days ago, but I didn't actually see this. I'm looking at this right now. So obviously your top 20 stocks are here. Typical names: Micron, Amazon, Apple, Nvidia, Tesla, Microsoft. But look at the put call ratio. Some of these are above 1 or close to 1, which essentially signifies that there's a lot of puts being bought at the same level of a lot of calls, or more puts being bought than calls. So Nvidia had 1.8 million calls, 1.6 million puts, which means people are hedging. Tesla had more puts than calls. Marathon had more puts than calls. Palantir had more puts than calls, 259 versus 227. Meta, Apple are all pretty close to that ratio. Microsoft actually had double the amount of calls versus puts. Where is Microsoft? We haven't looked at that today. That has been an absolute disaster. Cannot believe it is trading at these levels for the quality of company that it is. Microsoft, we had 370, 361. Okay, at least that's green on the day with software. VIX is now 30.7. VIX is very close to going green on the day. But you do have some decent hedging coming in with the put flows. How does fear and greed work? Honestly, I don't even know. It's an aggregated index that has been relatively accurate in the context of buy in extreme fear, sell in extreme greed. We haven't had extreme greed for a long time, but this is like the 5th time in 7 months we've really hit the lows on extreme fear. And historically, it's a gauge of sentiment, I guess. I think they use a combination of moving averages and price action. It's worked, but this time the fear and greed index has to deal with the war. That's a lot harder to resolve. Meta right there, 530. Micron, 342, just straight down. Nebius as well, down 5% on the day. NVIDIA, 166. NVIDIA getting ugly here. NVIDIA getting ugly here. Yeah, it's ugly. It is getting ugly again. S&P, are we still green on the SPY? Wow, it's a dollar away from going red. Well, congrats to anyone who sold some covered calls 20 minutes ago, or if you bought some puts. Goodness gracious. 1030 reversal. Oh, man, I hope. I don't think Powell's going to say anything, guys. He's going to be talking in Harvard. He's going to be talking to the youth of Harvard about, their life and goals. I don't think he's going to be talking about explicit monetary policy to Harvard kids. Unless he's talking to, like, business professionals at Harvard. But if he's talking to, like, the graduating class, I'm not sure he's going to get into what's going on in the actual economy right now. So we'll see if there's anything reasonable that he says, but I'm not sure if the market's going to care that much. 10-year spiking a little bit. How about the yen? Yen down a little bit, 159.50, below 160, but still up. Still up on the day. Qs just get red. Yes. He's going to tell them, screw your calls and screw your puts. I mean, look, if you're graduating college, this is a great, if you're 22 years old, I mean, you got to be excited about these dips, right? Like, the problem is a lot of us are not 22. We built up some equity in the markets. We're trying to protect it. And these 22-year-olds are getting a great dip to start off their investing career. So, we got to navigate how this is going to play out. And right now, obviously, the market is not happy with any of the market just doesn't believe these Trump tweets. Robinhood right there, 66. That's about to go red. Exxon's up 3%. Unity's up 5%. I mean, it didn't take a genius to think that the pre-markets would fade when oil was pumping with the market. Like, the market's pumping off the Trump tweet. The oil futures are pumping because of, like, the actual fundamentals of what's happening. And now the market fades and oil continues to stay strong. I mean, feels like that's your story for the day if this continues. Moran is on CNBC. Let's pull him up. Let's see what he's saying. It also really sucks when you're 59. Yeah, I would imagine it definitely sucks when you're 59. That is fair. And obviously that's a lot of Trump's base as well when it comes to voting. All right, let's see what he's saying. Hopefully we can get some better context of how he's thinking about inflation here as well.
Stock exchange coming up. They have some believing the Fed's next move could actually be a rate hike before the end of the year. Our next guest has been dissenting in favor of bigger cuts at recent meetings. Fed Governor Stephen Myron joins us now for a CNBC exclusive. Welcome. Good to have you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me back.
Has your view changed at all as a result of the rising oil prices and diesel prices and fertilizer prices about the outlook for inflation?
Yeah, so traditionally the Federal Reserve looks through an oil price shock. Now, the reason why we do that is because oil price shocks tend to boost the price level immediately. They flow through into prices very quickly. Gas prices move higher, but monetary policy only hits the economy with lags. It doesn't, if you change monetary policy today, it doesn't affect economic growth. It doesn't affect unemployment or inflation for 12 to 18 months from now, right? So if the oil price boosts the price level today through the gasoline price and other things, but not 12 to 18 months from now, monetary policy simply cannot affect that. Now, the way that that wouldn't work, that this traditional logic the Federal Reserve has always observed, the way that this logic would not work is in one of two scenarios. One is you get a price wage spiral where wages start moving higher and then prices start moving higher too. There's not really any evidence of that thus far at all. And with the labor market on a gradual cooling trend for the last 3 years, that seems extremely unlikely. The other way that you would get the oil price shock boosting inflation 12 to 18 months out is if inflation expectations started to get affected. And when you look at the inflation expectations, you don't really see that. So I like to look at CPI swaps. CPI swaps for the next year moved higher because prices move higher immediately, exactly as we said. But when you look at forward rates, when you look at inflation expectations, 1 year forward, 1 year, 2 years forward, 1 year inflation, 3 years forward, they haven't budged. And when you look at medium to long-term inflation expectations, like 5 years forward, they've actually been coming down since this entire thing started. So in order to get an inflation shock from oil that the Federal Reserve can affect, it needs to affect inflation beyond a 1 year horizon, and there's thus far no evidence.
All of that is true, but you know, there was evidence, first of all, that the Fed's inflation target was higher. I mean, that inflation was higher than the Fed's target going into this, right? And that what this will do is, even if it's in the short term, will have an impact on headline CPI, on PCE. You know, the longer this lasts, and it's now what, we're 5 weeks in. And there are concerns that it will have a bigger impact on underlying inflation, even if you're not seeing it necessarily in those expectations or wages.
Yeah, so if I saw one of those two things happen, if I saw a wage price spiral or I saw evidence that inflation expectations were starting to pick up, then I would get worried about it. But as I said, there's no evidence of it thus far. And you can move the monetary policy rate all you want, you know, today, tomorrow, but it's not going to affect inflation in the next couple of months, right? It can only affect inflation a year to a year and a half out. And unless you start to get evidence that inflation a year out is moving higher,
so is that just
monetary
something
policy just
your colleagues don't agree with you on? Because most of the other Fed members and officials that have been speaking in the last few weeks have said, okay, we're good to hold and see what happens with inflation here as a result of oil.
My sense is that a lot of those people had that view before the Iran war broke out. I don't have a real sense that anyone is sort of really moving their position as a result of this, and maybe they'll tell you otherwise. I can only speak for myself. But what I just outlined is traditional Federal Reserve logic and way of treating
the market has completely moved as a result of this war. It's taken out all the price cuts and now started to, I mean, we're not fully there, but increase odds of a hike.
Absolutely. Look, we're in the middle of a war, right? And if there's ever a time when markets are going to be volatile, it's in the middle of a war. So in a time like this, I'm disinclined to sort of disinclined to read too much into that. But you know, markets will do what markets do.
Would you argue it's made your ability to persuade would-be fellow dissenters, made it tougher?
You know, I don't think that the Iran war has really done that. But you know, look, I think that the labor market was on a gradual cooling trend for 3 years running into this. I don't think that there's anything that I've seen to convince me that that trend has changed, and I doubt that others will come away from what's happening in the Iran war and have a different view than that, right? If you think about it, higher oil prices, higher gas prices, they suck money out of expenditures that consumers would be making on other products, and so it leads to lower overall aggregate demand. And in a time when the labor market was running in the wrong direction from the Fed's mandate to begin with, that makes me a little bit more concerned about downsides to the labor market, and it is the type of thing that I think the Federal Reserve can accommodate.
So you're more concerned about weaker growth and higher unemployment than inflation, clearly. And it feels like that's a reverse of most of the other folks at the Fed. Fair?
Well, I mean, I can't speak for the others. I can only speak for myself. But what's happened?
That was Powell's message at the last meeting, really, is inflationary risks are rising, unemployment is kind of stable.
What's happened has made me more concerned about that. And as I said before, I just gave you what would make me more concerned about inflation. It's seeing inflation expectations pick up more than a year out. It's seeing wages pick up in a way that was feeding a wage price spiral and not driven by productivity gains, right? Wage growth has been coming down even with high productivity growth, right? That tells you that the Fed is holding back labor demand in a way that I'm not sure that I don't think is appropriate.
So how much easier should the Fed be at this point?
Well, I think that at the moment, I think that we could be about a point easier, gradually done over the course of a year.
So you'd like to see now 25 basis point cuts?
That's what I voted for
meetings.
the last two meetings, 25 basis point cuts.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like that doesn't feel like that's not even consensus. But do you have anybody at the Fed agreeing with you on that?
Well, look, I'm clearly dissenting I'm clearly dissenting at each meeting. That puts me out of consensus, but that doesn't stop me from saying what I think. I think the labor market has been on a gradual cooling trend for the last few years. I think the Federal Reserve should be intervening to arrest that gradual cooling trend.
His argument is not crazy. I mean, his argument is the labor market is in trouble, and he's not wrong about that. We haven't necessarily seen that in the data exactly, but I think if you ask anyone anecdotally, is the labor market weak, they would say yes. The Fed is supposed to be early to these things, not late. And so I understand why he wants to cut. The problem is there's no way in hell he's going to get a majority of the Fed members to agree that the labor market should be the only reason we have to cut. Because obviously inflation from oil, even if it's not a long-term trend in the short-term data, it's going to be very difficult to cut in the midst of that, because that's probably going to re-stimulate the economy and that maybe accelerate a little bit more inflation, unless we have such aggressive job losses that it combats consumer demand, which you're not really seeing that yet in the data. And so, you could take the risk of being a little early there, and maybe that's going to be right. It probably will be right, quite frankly, in the age of AI if we don't get more jobs. But what Fed president wants to take that risk? Not many. And as a result, that's probably why we're going to see a little bit more hawkishness by the Fed. Apparently, Powell speaking at Harvard, it looks like he might actually be talking about the economy and not about like his life and stuff to these kids. And as a result, he might say some stuff that matters. But what is he going to say that could be more bullish than what Moran is saying? Because he's not going to agree with Moran around the idea of, cutting rates right now. There was a moment, I think 7 months ago, where Powell said something that was, he said, I think stocks are overvalued. And he said it in like a casual way, and the market dipped really hard. Maybe if he says something towards the opposite of that, stocks can rip, but I wouldn't count on it in this Harvard speech. Ondas below 9 right here. That one getting hit as well, 830. Down about 5% on the day. Rubio says it's unclear who currently rules Iran as leadership remains shrouded in uncertainty. That's another reason the market is confused if we're actually negotiating, and continues to be a little bit more bearish for the market to assume negotiations are happening. 2 Costco-linked container ships have exited the Persian Gulf via the Strait of Hormuz, marking the first transit by a major Chinese operator since the war began. Okay, so these Chinese ships are starting to, there's a variety of countries that are more friendly with Iran, and they are, making their way through the strait. Now, Trump also did say last night, and I am very curious to see if this happens throughout the night. Trump said the U.S. military will be escorting, or the U.S. Navy will be escorting ships through the Strait of Hormuz tomorrow, aka today. So, if that's the case, we should be having more oil coming through the strait. And I wonder, do the Iranians actually let the U.S. do that, or do they kind of put up a little bit of a fight with the U.S. as we escort these ships? I'm going to try to find the exact tweet where Trump said that last night, but that should be something that's more bullish than not. But once again, the problem with escorting these ships is that if the Iranians do start shooting at the U.S., to defend the strait, the U.S. is going to have to shoot back, and that begins a conflict. So every time Trump is like, oh yeah, we're going to escort them through, it's like, well, are we? Because if we do and they shoot at us and we shoot back, we get into a much larger issue, which we've avoided so far, at least at the strait. And that once again makes the market think, okay, we're not actually escorting any ships, and we're not actually getting increased oil coming in into the region. which is another issue. Chris already went back to Georgia, guys. He left last night. Most people left last night. There's a couple people that stayed, but most people left yesterday. Yeah, Trump, 20 large oil tankers will pass through the Strait of Hormuz tomorrow under Navy escort. That's what he said yesterday. CNBC is saying those 20 tankers are referring to, oh, wow, CNBC is correcting this. CNBC is saying those 20 tankers that Trump talked about are referring to Pakistani vessels permit. That's what he meant. Okay. So the 20 tankers under quote unquote U.S. Navy escort are not U.S. oil tankers. They're Pakistani vessels that were already permitted passage by Iran. Okay, that's a totally different. See, that's my point. Like, that's not Trump escorting these tankers, and the Iranians are like, oh, we're so afraid that the U.S. is escorting them because it's a big bad U.S. We're not going to shoot at them. These are ships that the Iranians are okay with going through because they're Pakistani ships. Because if it was legit, the U.S. Navy successfully escorting an oil tanker, I would imagine the Iranians would have shot at them. And if they didn't, then holy crap, the strait is open. That should be big news. That means that if the Iranians are going to do shit, boom, let's get 50 more ships through. Let's get a bunch of vessels. Let's keep it going. That's not what's happening. That's obviously not what's happening. And that's why these pumps get faded so aggressively. NVIDIA flipping green again a little bit, 167.87. So at least it's bounced from 166. SoFi still red. Unity down, robbing it up a little bit. S&P, little bit of green, 634 to 636.50. 634 to 636.50. But still down from 640. Did you see the Kit Kats that got stolen? Yes. I saw 12,000 tons of Kit Kats got stolen, which became big news, and the Kit Kat marketing machine did a great job capitalizing on that moment. Here was Besant this morning as well.
Cut deals with the Iranian regime for the time being, but over time, the U.S. is going to retake control of the straits, and there will be freedom of navigation, whether it is through U.S. escorts or a multinational escort.
So are you concerned at all about the Houthis getting involved? They shelled Israel with two rockets. Are you worried about the Red Sea?
Not as much. The Houthis have been very quiet so far. Cut deals with the Iranian.
Besant saying the same thing, that we're escorting these ships. We're not escorting these ships. Like, that's not happening. And I think that's why the market's also not feeling that excited about the oil that's passing through. It's good that oil is passing through, but it's not escorted U.S. oil passing through in that way. Oh, it was 12 tons, not 12,000 tons? Oh. Well, it was definitely a lot of Kit Kats. I can't believe, like, that. The fact that story went viral yesterday, this got 77 million views, dude. Like, the Kit Kat marketing team, look at that. We can confirm that 12 tons of Kit Kat product were stolen while in transit between our factory in central Italy and their destination in Poland. We are working closely with local authorities. The good news, there are no concerns for consumer safety and supply is not affected. This tweet alone is probably worth millions in marketing compared to the loss of the product itself. But you know that the market's in a weird spot when Kit Kat is going viral. It was me. I ate the evidence. 636 right there on the S&P, Microsoft 361. We are going back to green, not as green as we were in the morning, but at least not continued bloodbath. NVIDIA trying to touch 160, 168 again, which would be nice. Fermi is down. Remember, Fermi, this shouldn't be surprising that this is down. This was a IPO last year for Texas data centers. Down 23% today. I don't know why. There's probably some bad headline, but this was not one of the premier IPOs that got a lot of attention, and has a lot of investors, even though retail might be heavy in it. Same thing with Figma. Figma has put up phenomenal numbers, but the IPOs have been a bit rough. Also, Fermi signed almost a $200 million secured term loan. I think they issued some convertibles potentially. So I don't think that's the reason for the drop today, but that could be part of the reason you're seeing some of this pain. Jay Powell's talking in 12 minutes. We'll see what he has to say. German counselor, we will contribute to maintaining freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz after the war. The German chancellor also said something else this morning, comparing the war to COVID level impacts in terms of what it could do for the U.S. or for the German economy. So the Europeans have not necessarily been the happiest about everything else going on. German Chancellor Merz says the effect of the Iran war on Germany and Europe will be as serious as the COVID-19 pandemic if it expands. And if it continues. Oracle still getting hit. Who's getting whacked over the Kit Kat heist? That's a good question. That is a very good question. Microsoft is now 36% below all-time highs. What's the better buy here, Microsoft or Meta? I really think it's Meta. Meta's growth is so much more exciting than Microsoft. Microsoft's business is more holistic than Meta. But man, 33% growth. You're not getting that out of Microsoft on the top line easily. And Copilot is not that exciting. Azure is the only thing that's really getting the street to pay a multiple, to be honest. Meta just feels like they have a little bit more potential. Maybe Zucks has some stuff up his sleeve, but the ads business alone is exciting. Now, if we get a recession, the ads business is less durable than Microsoft's core business. Like, Microsoft's the better company, obviously. Like, it's Microsoft, but I feel like Meta is the better buy. Most of you guys saying Meta. I have not looked into the lawsuit enough, guys. I obviously I didn't have time this weekend, but there's a couple people I talked to that are heavy in Meta at the meetup, and they were pretty concerned because their opinion is that it opens up a really bad precedent, which I get that argument, but I'm also like, I think Meta has some pretty fancy lawyers, and they're going to find a way to make sure they don't get sued every other day because someone cried after someone called them fat on Instagram. Like, I feel like there might be a way for it to not be that bad. Photonics getting hit hard right here. AAOI, that stock down 11% on the day. Lumentum's getting hit. Coherent's getting hit. Lumentum down 4%. Coherent is also down 5%. Why not buy NVIDIA instead of Microsoft and Meta? The funny thing is, I feel like you can't go wrong on all three, but I agree. Like, NVIDIA is cheaper than both of them, which is crazy because they're growing faster than both of them by a wide margin. But, like, that's the fun thing about this dip on the bright side. Like, you have a lot of Max 7 names where take your pick. One will outperform the other most likely, but, I mean, 5 years from now, these got to be bargain prices if this AI story continues on all of the Max 7, X, Tesla, and Apple, just based on a multiple basis. But right now, the market's obviously not giving them that level of premium. Nebius 95, IREM 33, AMD 203.80. 203.80. CoreWeave getting hit. CoreWeave, wow, below 70. The data center plays. I don't see a headline this morning on data centers. The Bernie Sanders news is old. I think these are just super high beta names that in a sell-off get hit the worst. I'll see if there's something bigger, but I don't think there is a big headline. Trump just posted a video, and it is about the special announcement that the White House talked about on Friday.
Pleased to announce that my administration is launching a brand new official White House app, giving front row access to all news from your favorite president, Donald J. Trump. That's me. It's available today on the Apple and Android app stores. You can watch all White House events, read all my executive orders, and keep track of all of our promises made, promises kept. That was a phrase that I used during the campaign, and it's very true. In fact, I actually kept more promises than I even talked about. We did much more than I said we were going to do. Every American should expect their government to have transparency, and the Trump administration is the most transparent in history. That is for sure. No one knew that Sleepy Joe Biden was doing. We had no idea what that guy was doing. The good news is he had no idea either. But my administration is inviting all Americans to join us on this mission to make America great again. I believe it has to be the most important, powerful phrase in the history of politics. Make America great again. And we have made America great again. Now we want to keep it great. So download the new White House app today. Thank you very much. You have done a great job. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. So we will be able to be updated on the White House affairs with this new app. That's definitely important during the volatile times that we are living in. Rocket Lab down 3%. AMD's up 1%. Nebby is still getting hit. Roblox down 1%. Marvell's down 4%. Dude, Roblox should go to 0. If Meta is getting sued for kids being bullied on Instagram, how is Roblox even a thing? Like, that's why the Meta lawsuit feels ridiculous. Because the shit that happens on Roblox and the stories that we've all heard, which it happens over and over again, how is that platform even alive? Like, outside of the core business and their growth and the fundamentals, if we're going to destroy Meta because of cyberbullying, I mean, it really makes the Meta thing look weird. Sandisk right there, getting a recovery back above 600. Planet Labs falling 6. ASTS, Rocket Lab still down. So the space names taking a bit of a... Wow, ASTS below 80. This one has tried to not fall that low for a while. That's getting hit now as well. Muddy Waters again raised concerns on SoFi. Dude, Muddy Waters. The worst thing about this is they called a short on a downtrend, and the downtrend is getting worse, so the short looks smart. But I don't know if that necessarily means that's correct. Oh, they have a whole new article. SoFi borrowed $312 million from JP Morgan and booked it as a sale. The UCC filing uses the word borrower. The CFO used the word sold. Both can't be true. SoFi's borrowing money and booking as a sailed enriched management. In our first report, we highlighted unrecorded borrowings of $312 million. Utah UCC filings contradict this accounting, leading us to believe that SoFi needs to restate this transaction. However, this restatement could be much larger than just $312 million. We believe that when SoFi restates this borrowing, it will also restate $1 billion of previously recorded EBITDA, and its capital ratios will be restated materially lower. Okay. I am not an expert on SoFi's loan business. I think Tanner will be able to more properly address that. But $1 billion of EBITDA is fake, is the argument from Muddy Waters. Like, that's the claim they're going for. I don't fundamentally... I know there's a different definition of fair value accounting and how they think of borrowing versus selling, but I just refuse to believe that SoFi's books are cooked to the tune of $1 billion of EBITDA. I just would disagree with Muddy Waters on that claim. I ran right there, down 4%. Nebius still down 5.6%. Yeah, and they're referencing Q3 of 2024. Like, this is incredible. But we're in a downtrend. And, you know, if SoFi goes down, then people will get to claim that Muddy Waters is right about this. The VIX, by the way, still at 30. VIX is at 30. Yeah, this was they tried to get on Tanner's stream. He actually messaged me as soon as they reached out to him. And it was very sus when a short tries to get a lot of attention, especially on a channel that is long on a name. they're trying to get the message. They're trying, like, your short thesis should be good enough where you don't have to market it. A short thesis, and video goes red again, should be able to go viral based on the idea of the short being, the short exposing something materially wrong inside of a company or inside of a macro event that gets people to really question stuff. You shouldn't need to get on a YouTuber's live stream to talk about a short. I mean, if that is not a red flag on like a thesis, I don't know what is. Like, if Muddy Waters legit believes SoFi is overstating their adjusted EBITDA by $1 billion, that is claimed for like massive fraud. I mean, we're talking about serious criminal negligence against Noto and the management team. Like that you don't need to go to Tanner's live stream to make that argument. App Love and 372, that's down 3%. And so the fact that he's willing to do or wants to do that means that the short is probably full of shit. And he just wants to market it so that they can get out of the position and make a profit versus actually make the claim that SoFi is cooking the books. But I guess we'll see what SoFi responds with. I mean, now they're in a battle with the shorts. Netflix right there, 93.30. Palantir, 140.98. Our girl AOC had some words this weekend over Palantir. This is what she said a couple days ago.
To do today. Unfortunately, the leaders of this industry have repeated time and time again that they view working people as an endless untapped market to be manipulated and exploited, that they would sell our country out if it meant that they could turn a profit. And it is no surprise that in the 4 years since ChatGPT was released, we have seen AI deployed at a massive scale to create Big Brother-like surveillance. Every day, Americans are seeing videos of ICE agents waving phones into crowds, threatening that if they use their First Amendment rights, U.S. citizens using their First Amendment rights, that they will be added to some vague database that the American people have not consented to nor are knowledgeable about. Companies like Palantir are mining endlessly the data and privacy of the American people, keeping track of everything that they say and do, and sending it all to a militarized and centralized government. When you take the subway, when you share a TikTok, when you talk to your Alexa at home, they are collecting your data and figuring out new ways to weaponize it. And now they are using AI tools to automate this so that it is not only pervasive, but that it is effortless. We must sound the alarm now.
So you've got some politicians making the claims around the big tech companies, and the question is going to be how effective those claims are in regards to the bill she's trying to pass this to create a moratorium on data centers, which I don't know at this point, dude. I really don't think it'll pass, but who knows how bad things get. Once again, our GDP is propped up by data centers. So if you were to get rid of that, that wouldn't be a good thing. Obviously, I also don't think AOC really understands Palantir, doesn't understand the business model. She's also bringing up surveillance like it's a new thing, like Meta and Google haven't been surveilling for years, and people haven't voluntarily given up their data. So it's some of this stuff where it's a political theatric to, paint one side as a really horrible bully and use that fear that people have to then weaponize it to get them to vote in a certain direction, which the Republicans do it as well, right? So it might be effective. Who knows? But you do have a faction of the American left that is completely starting to get against the data center. I mean, the No Kings protest this weekend we ran into some of the protesters in LA, New York, LA. You had I think DC had like 30,000 people come together to protest No Kings. Some of that stuff ends up leading to political choices, which potentially could be detrimental to obviously AI and data centers. Okay, Powell's not live yet. The stream is up, but he's not officially talking. He should be talking soon. Again, I really wonder if he's going to say anything about the economy or if it's going to be a different type of speech. But we will flip once it's there. S&P basically flat from the lows. We are still down on the day. Get her on the podcast, dude. I would love to have AOC on the podcast. I would love to talk to you. I would love to talk to any of the Mamdani, any of these people. I think it would be a good discussion. It's just a question of Because me and Steve would ask some really hard questions around the economy. Because I feel like AOC and Bernie never have to actually deal with those questions, you know? Because they don't go on CNBC, they don't talk to the business people. They go on Fox or CNN, and that just becomes a political mess. But like, if you were to say, hey, AOC, do you realize our entire GDP growth, job growth has been based on these data centers? And we get that you think the billionaires are just continuing to stack their wealth. But if you were to stop this, that regular people would substantially feel the lack of GDP growth, not only in their portfolios, their 401ks, but in their purchasing power, their ability to earn income. Like how would you navigate that situation? I would be really curious to see what their response is and how they justify their economic worldview. Amcor, by the way, down 4. Bloom Energy down 10. Bloom getting hit pretty hard today as the data center energy plays are going red. Yeah, AOC is also rich. That's Bernie got a massive book deal. I mean, these politicians also are not necessarily broke, to say the least. How is GDP growth relevant to an average American if wages can't keep up, if they lose healthcare? Look, it's a fair point, but I don't want to imagine this economy for the past 4 years if we didn't have data centers. Because you can make the argument that wages aren't keeping up, but if the economy itself is not growing, like if we are not advancing in general as a society and being able to grow gross domestic product, like you don't even have a chance for wage growth to keep up. And you have to spin out these statistics in a lot of ways because wage growth in certain industries has been phenomenal. Construction jobs have been amazing. Like there's been a lot of different things that have been good. There's been a lot of things that have been bad as well. But if we just didn't have that growth, if we didn't have any North Star to look up to, how does economic mobility continue? And it's a debate to be had, but the lack of growth in general would just be devastating for the economy. And I mean, you don't have to believe me. Look up data center growth in relative proportion to GDP growth. It's literally 50% or above. So if you take that away, GDP is growing at 4, we'd be at 2, maybe, because that data center stuff is all going back to AI and models and NVIDIA and Anthropic, and that's where you get the real growth coming in now because we built these data centers. If that stuff goes away, I mean, I feel like you're looking at less than 1% GDP growth over the past couple of years because there just wasn't a real narrative to get there. Wow, Micron loses 340. The dollar's at 100.5. So people are fleeing into the Dixie right here. 100.5. That's the highest since May of last year. Micron below 340. That is getting hit pretty hard. S&P, you're seeing a red candle once again come up. That's a good point. If this short-term growth destroys the job market, then is it worth it? And that I don't have an answer for. I genuinely don't know. Because, I mean, that's a hell of a point. If building all these data centers creates all this AI and then we lose all these jobs, then, yeah, GDP growth probably stalls as well. That is fair. And I honestly don't know how to respond to that because, yeah, the labor market issue is something that, I mean, I don't think anyone has a response to that. It's an experiment we're all living through in real time in regards to how these data centers will impact unemployment. Applied AAOI, optoelectronics down 14% on the day. That's getting hit. That was at 130 last week, so that one hit pretty hard. CoreWeave down 7. All your data center AI infrastructure stuff is just bad today, NVIDIA included. Lumentum down 7%. Powell's on, is he? Let's see. He is... yes, he's on. All right, let's go to Powell.
At age, then some other things. So I wound up majoring in politics, actually specializing in Africa. It's fair to say that my freshman major was acoustic guitar. My parents gave me a Martin D.
I'm going to keep playing it, but it's pretty much what I said it was going to be. He's talking about his personal life. He's a very personable interview, probably. I don't know if he's going to talk about interest rates that much, but I'm going to let him play. But he's talking about his life and playing the guitar.
35 for high school graduation. They must have regretted that because that's what I was really working on mostly. Waited for Goltz, who was famous, had many economic jobs, and others who had done those sorts of things. And I grew up in Washington, D.C. My parents were not. My dad had fought in World War II, and he had been a U.S. attorney, but they weren't people who were terribly plugged in politically. I was very interested, though, in those years in public policy and in trying to create a life that was partly private sector and partly public sector. And amazingly enough, that's kind of what happened.
Great. So now, jumping right to the present, we talk about the Fed as a unitary entity, but of course, the Fed is led by the Federal Open Market Committee. There are 12 voting members. You, despite being chair, only have one vote. And in normal times, there's a lot of consensus. Everyone's in agreement. Lately, there's been some disagreement. There's been votes to keep interest rates the same, but some members of the FOMC have decided instead to vote to decrease interest rates. How does the disagreement on the FOMC make your job harder as you describe the path of economic policy going forward?
You know, I don't think of it as making my job harder. I think it's, and I've found throughout my career that when you have a really difficult problem, it helps to hear from all sides. And in a way, for example, when I was a private equity investor and I was looking at supporting a transaction that I wanted to do, I really wanted to hear from the smartest people. Tell me why it's a bad deal. Tell me now before we do it. And I just think you don't really know how much you believe in something until you've had somebody really try to take it apart. So I welcome that at the FOMC and at the Fed generally. And I think it helps us make better decisions. The Fed has had a tradition of governors not dissenting, but that's really not typical of other major central banks where there's more dissenting, or I mean, they're different, depends on the central bank. And to me, what matters is the dissent thoughtful? Is it helpful? Does it help? Does it express a point of view? Can you stand behind it and say, yeah, that's very thoughtful? And that kind of a thing is not bad. And it doesn't hurt with communications. You know, I think a situation like the present situation where, you know, there's sort of downside risk to the labor market, which suggests keep rates low, but there's upside risk to inflation, which suggests maybe don't keep rates low. You've got tension between the two objectives. And I think to try to expect unanimity at a time like that, where it's really quite historically challenging, it would almost be misleading to be really confident in which way that should go. In fact, it's been said that confidence is what you feel before you really understand the problem.
Okay, let's turn to the Fed's balance sheet. In 2008, 2009, that great financial crisis, there was a massive expansion in the Fed's balance sheet. And then again in 2020, under your leadership, there was a second vast expansion in the Fed's balance sheet to address these two economic and financial crises. The balance sheet has since come down a bit, but it still sits at over $6 trillion. So I'd like to hear your views on how efficacious this vast bond buying program has been, both in the 2008 and then again in the 2020 episode. And also hear your reaction to the critics who say that the Fed has become too big a player in the bond market. The Fed has become too influential. There's been a muddying of, as according to the critics, of monetary policy and fiscal policy. Do they have a point, or are they wrong?
So I think the place to start with that is the problem that people were struggling with from about 2008 to 2022, let's say, in central banking everywhere in the world is, once you've cut interest rates to zero, do you have anything else you can do? Let's say you cut interest rates to zero and the economy is still clearly not flourishing and it wants more support. So do you just say, well, we're done, we're out of ideas here? And there were two ideas that were followed in the global financial crisis, one of which was to buy assets, longer term assets. And what you're doing there is you're buying longer term government guaranteed securities, which would hold down longer term rates. And that should stimulate the economy, or also forward guidance, which would tend to hold down forward rates as well, or just rates generally. So we did those two things rather than do nothing. And I think in the first instance, they were both efforts were successful at restoring market function and at restoring financial stability. At the beginning of the global financial crisis and the pandemic, we had massive problems of market function. They were solved. I think the question, getting to your question, David, of the macroeconomic effects is a much more, much less certain question. I don't think there is an accepted answer, but I would just say there's an oceanic quantity of research on this. And overall, it tends to find that buying long-term assets does lower interest rates and does provide some support for economic activity. And I guess I'd be in the camp of thinking that there's something in that, but it's hard to quantify it. And I think, you know, different people have different views on how much those effects could be. The other side of it is, you know, QE is thought by the critics to risk all kinds of other things. So, for example, you could buy too much of the Treasury market and it would stop functioning well. We have not seen that here. At the very beginning, there was the thought that it would be inflationary. We have not seen that, or that it would threaten financial stability or even create inequality. So we haven't really seen the downside risks. At the same time, the last thing I'll say is, I remember before I took over as chair thinking, I'll almost certainly never have to do quantitative easing. So what's that expression? Man plans and God laughs, something like that. So it just, you know, the pandemic came around and we needed to do a lot of asset purchases in a big hurry, and we did. So far, no Treasury Department has ever said, stop doing that, you're supporting the economy too much. Maybe that'll happen someday, but it hasn't happened yet.
So let's talk about the dynamics of inflation since the spike in 2022. Inflation has been coming down since then, but it still hasn't reached its 2% target. Some have argued that that last mile is extremely difficult, and to obtain that, we will need a recession. Others have argued that you've gotten us very close and you'll get us the rest of the way. Are you concerned about the time duration of the path from the high inflation of 2022 back to target? It's taken time. We're not there yet. Is that a destination we'll reach, or are you concerned that the last mile will prove very difficult?
So we will reach, the FOMC is and will continue to be committed to getting inflation back to 2% on a sustained basis. That's the place to start. So I feel like we had pretty much gotten there at the end of 2024 against the predictions of almost the entire economics profession when we raised rates a lot and very quickly in 2022. 100% essentially of economists were forecasting a recession. We didn't have one. Actually, we had 23 and 24 were both very strong years as the supply side healed and as our higher rates had some effect on inflation. So by 2024, you had the economy growing at 2.5%. You had inflation in the 2 plus a few tenths on a 12-month basis by the end of the year. And you had the employment market. You still had the labor market at essentially full employment. So I would call that a soft landing. We had it there. Then since then, we've had to face a much smaller source of inflation, which is the tariff inflation is visible. And we think it's really just a one-time price increase. That's been our thinking since the beginning. Right now, we think it's adding somewhere between 0.5 and a full percentage point to inflation. But that's a much smaller thing than we saw during the pandemic inflation. And you know, and of course now we're facing events in the Middle East, which will certainly affect gas prices, and we feel like our policy is in a good place for us to wait and see how that turns out.
Great. So let me turn to the current crisis in the Middle East and the effect on energy prices. Indeed, this classroom is familiar with that question from the last problem set, where we asked, how would you advise the Fed to respond to the rising price of oil? And we teach that when there's a demand shock, it's a pretty natural set of recommendations that emerge for the Fed. But when there's a supply shock, like this energy price shock, there's trade-offs that the Fed has to juggle. How do you make those trade-offs in general, and how do you make those trade-offs in this particular instance? And can you help everyone with their piece?
Well, maybe they should tell me. Sure. So it's you start with what you said. Our tools work on demand. Higher rates will tend to moderate demand. Lower rates will tend to stimulate demand. And when you have a supply shock, our tool doesn't have meaningful shorter-term effects on supply. So when you have a supply shock, the first question is, do you respond to it? And the classic question has been around energy, just in general, not really speaking about the current situation, although I'll get to that, I guess. But, energy shocks have tended to come and go pretty quickly. Monetary policy works with long and variable lags, famously. And so by the time the effects of a tightening in monetary policy take effect, the oil price shock is probably long gone, and you're weighing on the economy at a time when it's not appropriate. So the tendency is to look through any kind of a supply shock. But a critical, essential aspect of that is you have to carefully monitor inflation expectations, because you can have a series of these supply shocks, and that can lead the public generally, businesses, price setters, households, lead them to start expecting higher inflation over time. Why wouldn't they? At the end of a certain number of years, the inflation is now just higher, and that can happen. So you monitor that very, very carefully. Also, in the current situation, you have to be mindful of the whole broader context. And the broader context is we're still, we've been coming down close to 2% post-pandemic, but we've never actually, gotten right and stayed at 2%. So it's been a while. And we're very mindful of that fact. Inflation expectations do appear to be well anchored beyond the short term, but nonetheless, it's something as we will eventually maybe face the question of what to do here. We're not really facing it yet because we don't know what the economic effects will be, but we'll certainly be mindful of that broader context when we make that decision.
Great. So you've been a powerful and vigorous defender of the independence of the Fed.
All right. So I think that's pretty much the main stuff we're getting from Powell. The core question was, what do you think is happening with inflation? What do you think is going to happen with oil prices, the war? And Powell pretty much said what Powell always says. We're going to need the data. We have to balance the upside risk to the inflation scenario versus the downside risk to the labor market. And the data will continue to tell us what's happening. So I don't think we got any different news from Powell in this Harvard talk. It's probably more so for the people that are at Harvard to see him live and kind of hear about how he thinks about economic policy and monetary policy in general. CoreWeave's down 7, Coherent's down 8, Nebius is down 7, Lumentum's down 7. Amazon, for some reason, getting a little bit of green right there. That's up 1%. But Amazon and Meta kind of holding on to the green. S&P holding on to a little bit of it, 635. But a lot of AI infrastructure, drone stocks, basically high beta stuff, definitely getting wrecked right here. Rocket Lab down 3%, Oracle down 0.5%. So, I mean, it looks like certain sectors will stay green. Certain sectors are staying red. Let me just pull up the heat map real quick. In general, we had a massive pop that was not able to sustain itself early in the morning, which is kind of what I think a lot of people expected. But still green on the day across a lot of sectors. It's just semiconductors in particular, Micron, Broadcom, they're getting hit a bit harder than the rest of the market. All right. To end out this market open, we are going to bring a guest onto the show, and I have no idea what he's going to say, but nonetheless, let's bring him onto the show. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Davis.
Hello.
What's up?
I don't even know. I'm just trying to navigate market situations. You've heard from me all weekend complaining every single day. We were happy last night for market reasons, and then it's just fading away. But the meetup was great. I love coming to these, loving meeting people. Like, everyone loves me.
Erwin was at the meetup. Shout out to Erwin. Awesome guy. So happy that he came out to the meetup. I met Erwin 4 years ago, so the fact that we get to see each other multiple times a year is really special. But he left his Rocket Lab hoodie at my apartment, and I forgot to bring it to LA. And I was like, oh, I forgot to bring the bag holder sweater to the meetup. But it's like the Robin Hood hoodie is the bag holder hoodie. It's like everything that we loved has been taken away from us. And we all joked this whole weekend, Erwin, me, and Davis, that we're all poor now. So how does it feel being broke again?
Yeah. Depressing? I don't know. No, okay. we've navigated so much in the last 5 years. I've been investing for what, 5-6 years, and we've gone through 2020 with COVID. We've gone through tariff scares. We've gone through Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Pakistan. Now this one, it seems a little serious. It always seems more serious than it is while you're going through it. And then once you're finally through it, you're like, okay, it wasn't too bad. And we know that the market always comes back after it falls, because we're taking a bet on America. America is not going to fail.
So is that your perspective as a retail investor? Like, how are you thinking of, without getting into all the geopolitics of it, because you don't care that much about that, how do you think the situation resolves itself in the next coming months? Do you think it's just a taco and we V-shaped like last year, or how do you think it ends up happening?
I think once we get any sign of actual true news, that the market recovers instantly. We see every day that just a little hint that there's negotiations progressing or that ships are coming through the strait, we see a little pop and then it fades just because we don't believe it anymore.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of gotten to that point where Trump is the boy who cries wolf. And we believed him for so long because for so long it was true. But now we're just seeing the market fading because it's like, is it actually true now? You told us no new wars. Now we're in this war operation or whatever you want to call it. And it's like, okay, what's true? What's not? What's propaganda? What's not? And so we're in this time of uncertainty, and the market hates uncertainty.
You're pretty public with your political beliefs. You were a supporter of Trump.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about a war?
I hate it. I am very of the mindset of non-interventionalism. I mean, it's sad what's happening to people overseas, but at the end of the day, we have to focus on what's best for us. And we have so many problems here that we have to fix first, that I want us to focus on America because we have problems. You can't help other people if you can't help yourself first. That's my mindset.
Palantir, OG Palantir investor as well. You had a sticky situation with Palantir over the last year, but the stock price movement has given you some ability to navigate it. So what have you done with this stock?
So just for full transparency, I was deeply underwater in covered calls. I had 110s for January 2027. It was really hard to navigate. And, I just kept every day Palantir comes out with something cool, something badass. And I'm like, I love this company so much. I cannot let my baby go. So
it was not a sticky situation last night.
So long story short, I bought back all my covered calls. I'm now a shareholder again.
But you got to buy it on the dip.
I did. When I saw 120s, I'm like, I have to do it. So yes, I am in copious amounts of margin now, but that's okay. We'll navigate it. But I'm a Palantir shareholder again. The shares are mine again, and I plan on keeping it that way.
I think it's really interesting. You've talked a lot about your strategy of selling Palantir and eventually getting a little more safer. Mm-hmm. Do you want to kind of discuss that, or at least how you're thinking of it?
I don't know. I'm in this phase of the market where, look, I'm 30. There's a running joke amongst us that I don't work. I work 3 days a week, but 10-hour days. I'm in healthcare. But no, I want to eventually protect my gains. Like my whole thing is I put such a high price on my time, my freedom, and there will come a point where I want to diversify probably half my portfolio into safer stocks. And
just the S&P in general.
S&P, mostly Mag 7, and sell puts on them, sell calls on them, and just make sure that I actually protect my gains, because my entire goal is to retire myself, my future wife, not him, and my kids. I just want a life full of traveling and experiencing Earth, the world. So that's my end goal. I will always keep some individual names like Palantir, Zeta, to be specific. But no, I just want to protect my gains.
Yeah, and for context, he got into Palantir at $10, and there are a lot of gains to protect. So it makes sense trying to figure out what the exit is. But the covered calls obviously made it tough to get that exit and diversify into some more safe stuff.
I mean, just think about how stressful this situation has been for us since October?
Yeah.
Like after October, we're constantly stressed out about market going down, market chopping. And if you're invested in the S&P, you're down 5-6%.
Yeah, about
you're
70%,
chilling.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at in the markets.
Your highest conviction name right now is Zeta. Why?
Outside of Palantir, it's Zeta.
Okay, outside of Palantir, why Zeta?
For some reason, I have an affinity towards ads. Like I really liked PayPal, and that was terrible. It is what it is. But I'm looking at what David is doing with the company. 18 consecutive beats and raises. They just became GAAP profitable. A lot of what they're doing is just taking businesses, helping them make better decisions, better targeting audiences for the people using their products. And if you can find a company that's best in class, which I believe is Zeta or is going to be Zeta, and they're helping businesses save money, retain money, better allocate their ads, it really reminds me of a company that I love. And I'm not going to say the comparison because no company will ever come close to Palantir, but I just like what they're doing, and I understand it. It's one of the first companies where I've taken time to actually understand and write, not articles, but write posts about it on X.
Actually do some due diligence, talk to the CEO, you're friendly with the CEO. Company trades at a 4 billion market cap. It's not going to take a lot for it to get to an 8 billion market cap, but they're going to need to get respect by the street to get a multiple. And, Palantir eventually didn't get a multiple. Then when it got a multiple, it exploded. And same with a lot of stocks, Rock Lab, Hood, they didn't get multiples. Once they got multiples, things changed. And, I agree with his thesis on Zeta. I don't know if this is a $100 billion company, but is this a $20 billion company compared to its competitors? Yeah, I think so.
What's funny is David was giving them Trade Desk a hard time on, I think, the earnings call or an interview. And right across from us is a Trade Desk.
Yeah, our hotel's actually right next to their headquarters. And yeah, Zeta definitely is going for their launch.
And I'm so excited about Athena. Like I'm very excited about that rollout. There's a lot of speculation on how good it's going to be, but I'm excited to see how it performs over this next year. And I get to go see them at Zeta Live. So crazy journey I'm on.
You got NVIDIA getting a little pump. S&P 637. I don't know, guys, if there's a headline here. All I'm getting, the latest headline is explosions have been reported in Qatar, which I don't know if that's bullish, but that's a pretty nice candle. 633 to 638. NVIDIA just went green. Palantir close to going green. Amazon going up. The photonics plays are still down.
I went green.
Davis just went green on the day. Meta's getting a nice move right here. I don't think Powell said anything, but if we see any headline, we will we'll address it. Dow rises 300 points after Trump says U.S. in serious talks to end Operation Iran. Yeah, but Trump said that early in the morning.
Yeah.
Let me see. Let me check if Powell said anything immediately. Fed Powell, we're not trying to work against any administration or politician. Really? That's the headline? No sign past Fed bond buying was inflationary. We are not trying to work against any administration or politician. If that's the pump, I don't know if that's enough of a reason for it to be a pump.
You know what it is? You know what it was? So guys, I have to show you something. I have been like rubbing this guy on his bulb, not inappropriately, but just because he's green, I'm trying to pump the markets with Pokemon. So I'm getting desperate here.
It's a Bulbasaur.
And guess what? Pokemon has been outperforming stocks, so I
He
don't want
is
to hear
right.
anything.
Pokemon has been outperforming stocks, but Davis rubbing the green bulb on the Bulbasaur. Maybe at this point, maybe that's a better reason than what Powell's saying. Keep rubbing it. 638 S&P. All right, we'll end off the market open with some conversation on the meetup. How was you've been to New York and LA? How was the experience?
I mean, I was at the very, very first mini meetup in Vegas in 2023.
That's true.
So I guess this is my third one. And, you know, I was kind of thinking about it. I really just love the progression. Oh, there's so many jokes I could go with that. But no, I just really love the progression, not just with everyone, but myself. Because when you first met me, dude, I was dead silent. I didn't say anything.
Yeah.
Like I was just this troll online that would mess with you on YouTube or X. But now I just love talking to people, meeting them, hearing their stories. People, it's the weirdest thing that people know me, and they kind of know me for the wrong reason. But there are some people that actually want to talk to me about stocks. Like
A lot of people came up to you yesterday and
Yeah.
introduced themselves. Yeah.
and they're like, "You're Davis." I remember some guy on the elevator. I was like, I feel like I've seen you before, but hi. But no, it's just crazy that you guys value my opinion, and I really appreciate that. And one of the things I'm trying to get better at is being able to express my opinions and thoughts on businesses, the macro environment, micro environment. But we're all on a learning journey together, right? And that's what's great about this, is that finding those like-minded people and just discussing not just users of X, but I mean people that I interact with, people that I consider friends, and it's just nice to get together with like-minded people, friends.
Yeah, I agree with that. Shout out to Cash Mula. We had a guy, I didn't tell you guys this, but we had a guy who started, this guy, shout out to Scott, and I'll talk more about him on Tuesday. He messaged me a couple of days before the meetup to come through, and he is a professional caricature drawer. I'm definitely messing up how to pronounce what he does, but he came with all these stickers. There's Steve, there's myself currently right now. He's a big fan of the show, and he just started drawing a bunch of pictures of people. So if you were at the meetup, you can definitely post those pictures and send it to me of your caricature. Yeah, we someone ended up taking one of the stickers and putting it on Davis's Tesla.
I tried to remove it, and half of it came off, but the other half is just stuck.
Yeah, so
It's annoying.
that was a fun surprise for the meetup, and I think we'll have someone like that in Chicago. But that was really cool, right? You just walk in and like someone could draw your face in 4 minutes, and that was pretty cool. But look, to Davis's point about the meetups, the thing that I'm so happy about and what I think has been really cool is that, you know, Davis is becoming a real friend of mine, and in life, I think friendship is one of the things that really makes life valuable, because I've had a period in my life where I really didn't have friends, and I think a lot of people can relate to that, because I was busy working. I was busy, you know, trying to achieve something greater than myself. And you give up your social life, you give up going to the happy hours at 5 p.m. Like you give up all the things your friends are doing because you know you're working towards something else. And in the midst of that work, if you're able to find friendship, it's not easy. And it's actually very, very special if you can find a friend that you know you genuinely care about, that you would want to be at their wedding one day. So you know, the fact that he's been at these meetups and all the other mods, and we've been able to cultivate that friendship, and the meetups basically give us an excuse to like be friends and do friend stuff and go out and, you know, get dinner like in a different city. I think that's really cool. And then the fact that we get to meet all these other new people and become friends with them, and like different people get added to the crew as we meet up at old, I mean, shout out to Arthur. He's been to like 3 of these meetups in a row. And Mike, he's also been awesome. Like, that's the cool part about this, is like continuing that friendship. I think you would agree with.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because I would say you, Ray, Michelle, Erwin, Mike, like I talk to you guys almost every day now.
Yeah.
And it's not always about stocks, and it's nice.
Yeah, and it's important, man, especially when the markets are shitty. Like me and Davis didn't even talk about stocks the majority of the time we've been here at the meetup. We talked about a lot of other things besides stocks, and that's when you know you actually have a real friend, right? When you can talk about different ideas, and you can, you know, be able to bring up vulnerable things and still have meaningful conversations. How did you feel about some of the people you met at the meetup and like their level of being an investor? Because I met a lot of people that just started investing last year.
Yeah, I know
and there were some people that have been investing for 20 years.
No, that shocked me because some people were like, "Oh, I found Amit about 6 months ago." I'm like, "I found him 6 months ago, and you want to come here and meet him?" Like that. That's just a level of dedication. And
but I also don't think it was to meet me. I think like the fact that they met the community 6 months ago, exposed through my streams, they wanted to be part of that. That's the biggest takeaway I got.
I think it's hard because, I mean, I'm sure the chat, you guys can relate to this. A lot of your real life friends do not want to invest. They do not want to take the risk, even if they've seen. This is sad.
What is this market, bro? Dumping, baby. Rub that Bulbasaur, bro. Goodness gracious. This is a clown show, dude. Holy crap.
What was I saying? No, we have a lot of real life friends that just refuse to take the risk despite seeing the gains that we used to have, not so much anymore. I'm just joking, but it takes a special type of person to want to risk your own personal money. And being able to find a group of people, a community, us, it's something special. And I mean, despite all the jokes and whatnot, we are serious investors and we love this. We love doing this. The ups and downs, the volatility, the journey, it's fun.
Well, what has your journey been like for the past 5 years? Davis used to work at Cheesecake Factory, invested in Palantir a couple of years ago, was still in college, had to pay his way through college. He's now a stenographer. I mean, it must have been a crazy ride for you the past 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, seeing red days like this was depressing. I like losing everything I put into the markets. For the first, 2 years as I was working as a server, I didn't really have a social life. I didn't buy anything for myself.
Now you just bought a Tesla.
Yeah. It's just, it's been an interesting journey just because I never thought it'd get to this point where I'm interacting with this guy, someone who I guess is famous. And then I'm going out talking with CEOs. I have all these wild connections, all because I took a chance and decided to start talking on X and just asking questions. Now I'm basically, because I'm joining you on all these events, I get to travel the United States, maybe even the world. I've met people, like I'm going to travel and meet people. It's something I never expected. I always thought investing was solely about money. I didn't expect all these little side quests to pop up. And it's worth almost as much as I've made in the markets, honestly.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that's the best way to end it out. Shout out to RF Andy as well. He's been in the chat for 5 years. It was great to meet him and his lovely wife yesterday. RF Andy quit his job and is now has turned his side hustle into his main hustle. So I heard a lot of people at the meetup also saying they quit their job and they use the markets to build some safety for them to then pursue other stuff, which is also super inspiring. But yeah, the journey of friendship and being able to create a community, I think, is even more special than the gains itself, because like it's only supposed to be about stocks and money, but it's so much more than that. And the reason for that is because obviously stocks and money impacts a lot of other parts of your life. But at the end of the day, if you can both celebrate Palantir going up and cry when Palantir goes down, you can probably talk about a lot of other things that you are going through in terms of mutual experiences in life that don't have to do with the stock market. And that's what I think brings people together. And that's what I like the meetups and the reason for the meetups. It's not to meet me. It's to meet everyone together, which is why Chris, Steve, Jason, all these people coming out, it really makes them a fun event. And, you know, we'll try to set up the infrastructure, make them better over the next few years.
Yeah. And I'll be in Chicago. Excited to meet more people.
Yeah. Chicago should be fun. And, you know, each meetup, you meet new people, you see different perspectives. I'll put the Chicago link right there in the chat for those that want to check it out. But, you know, it's one of those things where for $100, getting dinner, drink, and 6 hours of meeting people, I feel like the value is there. Again, we're not even making a profit on this. The goal is not to make a profit. Like, it's genuinely not about money. It's about creating something where people feel so happy to be part of something, and that will pay dividends in the future. I don't know how, but it will pay off. What matters is having a space for these moments. And I think people are just so grateful for it. And I get really happy when people say they're grateful for it, because it is a lot of work doing this shit. It's a lot of stress, and it's stress that's not related to making a profit, right? So it's stress that I'm taking on just because I think these meetups are special and they're important, and hopefully they continue to get bigger over time. As the market's dumping, 636 on the S&P. It is absolutely hilarious. Any raw reaction to that?
I just want this macro bullshit to end. Like, bring back October, where all I had to worry about was a stupid tweet. But the thing I hate the most about Trump right now is, I mean, all this macro stuff, of course, but I hate that he's so funny with it still. Like, bro, you can be funny when my bags are pumping, but can we be serious for like a day or two?
No, that's true. Like, he is, I mean, the way he talks about this shit too is like actually hilarious. But it's like, oh, I thought the markets would be down more. It's like, bro, oh my gosh. It is definitely an experience.
No, we'll get through this. I mean, he made the joke earlier, but bro, stop hosting meetups when the market crashes, or just stop hosting meetups in the market.
Okay. So May 9th is Chicago. May 1st, get ready to short the market. And I'm like, it's not advice. I'm just saying it's been a trend 2 times in a row. We've had some ugliness going into the meetup. So it is what it is.
Yeah.
All right. That is it for us. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Deeply, deeply, deeply appreciate it. Thank you, everyone who came out to the meetup. I guess Powell said something that triggered the algos, and now the algos are going back in a different direction. Powell also said we don't see contagion from private credit right now. Doesn't have the makings of a broader systemic event. That's good to hear from Powell, that he thinks the credit markets are going to be okay. It's just right now the war is the broader overhang, and obviously that's creating a lot bigger of an issue for the equity markets. I will be back, not tonight, not for the close, but tomorrow, market open. We will have a full month and a half of no traveling, back to the regular schedule. Excited for that. And yeah, I'll talk more about the meetup on Tuesday. I'll have the pictures coming in soon. There's some pictures on X, but we'll get the professional photos posted pretty soon. So if you're at the meetup, you'll get an email with that. And deep thank you to everyone who came out, who took the time out of their day. It was 6 hours. We had people stay 30 minutes after the 6 hours, like 6 to 12 just flew by. Same thing will happen in Chicago. And we will keep it going. And hopefully we can get a little bit more recovery in this market. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Yes, we will do Technical Tuesday tomorrow. And I will see you guys tomorrow, market open. And once again, incredibly, incredibly grateful for this community. It is my mom got to really see a lot of the action through my sister's perspective, because my sister was there. So, and a lot of you guys got to meet her. By the way, a lot of you guys gave her a lot of shit. It's like, oh, you're the sister that doesn't care about the market. Someone asked how often do you check your portfolio? She's like once a month I open Robinhood, and some people lost their mind because we open it every 5 seconds. But that was also super funny and a great experience. All right, thank you, everybody.
No word of the day if you're not doing a close.
Do you have one? You want to pick a word of the day?
Nah, just
you want to do one?
Pick one, and then we'll try to pronounce it.
Okay, actually, this is good. You can pronounce it. You can try. I hope it's actually one that sounds easy, so that everyone can just act like it's me, but it's actually not, and Davis can mess up on it. This one, yeah, let's see. Okay, go ahead. Try it.
Alacrity.
Okay, you think the C is a sus sound there? Alacrity? I think it's alacrity.
Alacrity.
I think it's alacrity, bro. Brisk and cheerful readiness, eager willingness to act. She responded with alacrity when the opportunity appeared. No hesitation, just execution. Say it again.
Alacrity. Oh my God, you're right.
I think it's alacrity, bro. I think it's Alec. Let's see.
Yeah.
Alacrity.
Okay, we both fucked up. You were right at the top. I was right at the bottom. Shit, top and bottom. Good. All right. That is how we end the stream. All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.
Peace.
Bye, everyone. Have a good one.